Good afternoon, everyone. This is our Wednesday, May 10th, regular Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we have a room full of young folks and old folks here, and welcome everyone. We're going to have a couple proclamations. I think we will do the proclamations up over here so all the kids can gather around to begin with. And I've got a mic for you, Patty.
Okay, perfect.
What fun.
We're going to come stand over here.
You want them now?
I'm Russian, they have.
We'll stand up behind them even if we're not.
Hi. You guys all come up here. I'm going to read this, okay?
We can wait.
This is a proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County, Colorado. Whereas Kids First Early Childhood Resource Center and Pitkin County Child Care providers are celebrating the month of the young child in May. That means this month is celebrating all of you. And whereas by raising awareness about the value of high-quality early childhood programs available for all children and families in our community, and whereas Pitkin County thrives when our kids thrive because our future workforce leaders and community members, we all have a role to play in preparing our kids for the future. And whereas building a healthy human brain is a process that begins before birth and continues into adulthood. A strong foundation early on increases the probability that a child will be socially and emotionally healthy as well as physically healthy. And whereas the appropriate learning opportunities that high-quality early childhood programs provide, children acquire language, mathematical, social, emotional, artistic, and physical skill development that strengthens the foundation for success in life embraced by the Aspen idea of mind, body, and spirit. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners, that's us, and citizens of Pitkin County join the National Association for the Education of Young Children, that's you, in proclaiming May 20, 2017 as the month of the young child. We extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to all those who work so hard to care for and educate our youngest citizens, and we commend these efforts and encourage community involvement of all citizens to recognize and support the needs of young children. So thank you all for coming today. Right here, we have little treats.
I'll go grab some. Sure.
All right, guys.
Bubbles. Wait till you're outside.
No, don't wait. It's my mic light.
So,
They're a little bit like little
thank you, commissioners. I'm Shirley with Kids First. I left a flyer for each of you. We have our annual Young Child Parade next Thursday, May 18th, starting at 10 a.m. It'll start in front of the fire station in Aspen. And we would love to have you come along and join in or cheer the children on. We'll be marching through downtown Aspen next Thursday. Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley.
I love all six
Everybody.
Testing.
So we're going from young to old, although we're all young at heart, right? Right. This is a proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County, Colorado, designating May as Older Americans Month. Whereas Pitkin County includes older Americans who richly contribute to our community. And whereas we acknowledge that what it means to age has changed for the better. Whereas Pitkin County is committed to supporting older adults as they take charge of their health, explore new opportunities and activities, and focus on independence. And whereas Pitkin County can provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages, by involving older adults in the redefinition of aging in our community, promoting home and community-based services that support dependent living, encouraging older adults to speak up for themselves and others, and provide opportunities for older adults to share their experiences. And whereas Steve Childs has received the Senior of the Year Award, and Christy Eddy has received the Friend of the Seniors Award for their outstanding service to our community. Now, therefore, Pitkin County does hereby proclaim May 2017 to be Older Americans Month. We urge every resident to take time during this month to acknowledge older adults and the people who serve them as influential and vital parts of our community. So thank you all.
Hello, I am not Krista Eddy. I'm Mary Barber, and I work at the Senior Center. And I'm just accepting her award for her because she's on a well-deserved vacation. She has done such a great job with Reese Henry doing taxes for many years for seniors at no cost. So I'm accepting this award for her, and we will honor her at the Senior Center, I think it's the 31st of May. So thank you.
Well, thank you. This is an honor to receive from my fellow commissioners. For the past 2 years, I have served on a statewide board called the Strategic Action Planning Group on Aging. And I've been over to Denver for many meetings and also on many phone calls with the committee meeting and subcommittee meeting. And we've come up with an action plan for the state of Colorado and all of the counties and municipalities to make a better world for seniors. Our aging population is really exploding in Colorado and across the country. Everybody's getting older, and more people are getting older than 65 and older than 80 and older than 100 even. And so there's a lot of work to be done. So that's really why I'm being honored for this, is my work on that board, but I also have been serving on regional and local committees that work on aging issues. So I wanted to tell this, I told this story at the senior luncheon in Frisco the other day, and I wanted to tell the same story about how I became a volunteer. It was back when I was a junior in high school at Basalt High School, and the year would have been, I think, in 1964. And my class was building a float for the homecoming parade. And I did not go that night when they were doing the float. And I felt so bad about that I hadn't gone and helped my classmates, that I made a pact with myself that in the future, whenever I had an opportunity where I was able to help out on any activity or thing that was going on, that I would do my best to try to volunteer for things. So ever since I was a junior in high school, I've been like a perpetual volunteer for various things as time went on. So that kind of helped define who I was. A failing of mine when I was a junior in high school, I think made me a better person. So thank you so much for this honor. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And scratchers.
Discriminatory.
And fish.
Great.
Okay, John, any additions or deletions to today's agenda?
There are no additions or deletions to the agenda today.
All right, great. So we're at our part of our agenda. We have public comments. Anybody wishing to make a public comment, please come up, identify yourself, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Last time we saw one another, conflict. Trust me. Patty will tell you about Glendale, California, even Pasadena. I'm known in Pasadena, too. Anyway, my nomenclature is MZVZ the third. First, I'd like to say, okay, Rachel Richards, it was nice seeing you at the Capitol building. Also, Your Honor, Steve Child, it was nice seeing you at the Capitol building. Yeah, we had a conference. Don't worry, there weren't 3 of these people there. It was just 2 and myself at different times. All right, very quickly. First subject, film subsidies. In terms of Colorado, some of you might have read the paper. Yeah, I'm around, however it may go. Remember Johnny Grant, remember honorary mayor of Hollywood, right, Patty? Anyway, Hollywood unions made this area famous. The Producers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, the Writers Guild, and others. You owe the film industry in America and in Colorado a lot that you haven't done. I'm asking you to support them. That means going in through this year into next year when the budget's coming around. And I mean very hard. New Mexico beats out Colorado for days, TV and film. For days. I mean, it's shortly behind New York and all that kind of stuff in Louisiana. All right? So I'm asking you, full charge from now all the way through next year into, what is it, beginning of May, to help out. They did you a favor. You haven't done what needs to be done here in Colorado. All right, now the second one, and then I walk. The Federal Aviation Administration, that's the federal government, is over the airport here, the county airport. Isn't that right? Okay. Now, you've got a policy at the airport that lets airport passengers dump their dope there on federal control. What's wrong with you? All right. Now, what happens when President Donald Trump gets around to you all here? I mean, some of you have already messed up already. You're in trouble, aren't you? Already, you're actually in trouble. All right? So what are we going to do about it? To make sure that that dope is not on airport property. Not even 30 feet from the parking. All right? And everything else. What are we going to do? Well, look, thank you very much for your time. As Ben Franklin said, time is money. Oh, and I did speak twice when it came to that transportation bill that got shot down. Yeah, it was very interesting each time, one for the House and one for the State Senate in terms of committees. Anyway, look, thank you very much, and hopefully you take care of these problems.
Anybody else wishing to make any public comments today? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back for commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments?
I'll go. If anybody else wants to go first, that's fine.
Rachel?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to update on a matter in which we had sent a letter to Senator Gardner and Bennett, and that was regarding not eliminating the methane capture rule on public lands. Methane is a shorter-lived greenhouse gas than carbon, but it is more potent as a greenhouse gas by many measures. It's also very dangerous for human health. And the oil and gas extraction industry via fracking tends to release a lot of methane. And during the Obama administration, there was a rule promulgated to require industry to capture that fugitive methane and to reduce the amount of flaring that goes forward for both two reasons, public health and the waste of the resource that it is. It is estimated that in North Dakota, the amount of flaring could power 100,000 homes. And so because of something called the Congressional Review Act, when there's a new president, the Congress can call up any rule or item that was passed in the prior 60 business days. And so a small note is this is part of why Congress doesn't work that often, because then they can go back a full 6 months to actually cover 60 working days. And this board wrote letters to say, please keep that methane rule, because it's very important for our high altitude, where air is thin to begin with, and that air sheds don't recognize state or county lines, and we get affected by methane as well, that drifts across. So that was killed early this morning. It did not go forward. And that's a great thing. And we have Senator Lindsey Graham and Marie Cantwell, who are Republicans, and one other I could find in the article to thank for that. Unfortunately, Senator Cory Gardner did not weigh in to oppose the repeal of that methane rule. And there was a testimony on the Hill by a rancher. And I will just read this briefly. Even when New Mexico rancher Don Schreibner can't smell the methane waste from one of the 122 active wells surrounding his property, he can hear it. The roaring sound of a jet engine is how he describes the sound of waste as it's propelled through methane pressure to the well's surface. Scribner, who participated in the decision-making process that resulted in the Bureau of Land Management rule that regulates methane waste on public lands, is adamantly opposed to its repeal, which the Senate will vote on today in what is expected to be a nail-biter. He said, "Every living thing is affected by methane and the chemicals that are released with it," during his Capitol Hill press conference yesterday with Michael Bennett of Colorado and Marie Cantwell, who both plan to oppose the resolution to repeal the rule. He opted to pass out photos of his family members, ranch animals, instead of spouting numbers and data to illustrate his point that the debate over the rule repeal is more than economics. None of these senators has a leaking well on their property, said the rancher, who lives in Rio Arabita County, New Mexico, which borders Colorado. It's morally outrageous for people disconnected from the land to remove those methane rule protections for me, my family, and American farmers and ranchers across the West, he said, directly criticizing Senator Cory Gardner, Republican of Colorado, who had remained publicly undecided on whether he will repeal the rule. However, he did not stand with Coloradans and people concerned about their health. So that was disappointing, but we're fortunate that others saw the light of day in the Senate, and we will see that rule remain in Colorado. And a last footnote is that actually catching, correcting, and preventing methane leaks has become one of the newest and highest job-generating activities in oil and gas fields. So, thank you very much.
George?
Thanks, Rachel. Patty?
Yeah, I'm going to extend to, and a reminder to those of you who might not remember, Sunday is Mother's Day. So to all of the mothers, happy Mother's Day. My mother is 92. I already sent her flowers. I always send her early to beat my siblings to the punch, so Mom gets my flowers first. But so for all the mothers-to-be, happy Mother's Day on Sunday, and I'm planning to spend Mother's Day with my new granddaughter and hopefully with my grandson, so I will be a happy grandmother on Mother's Day. So enjoy, and hopefully we'll have a beautiful spring day. Thanks, George.
Thanks. Anybody else? Greg?
I wanted to point out and make sure the public knows that this coming Saturday, is the Electronic Appliance Recycling and Turn-In Day from 9 to 12 at the Community Bank parking lot here on Mill Street. You can take in that old computer or hardware that you dare not throw into the landfill, and they will recycle it properly for free. And this is an important thing. We don't want to be putting the various toxic chemicals and materials from old electronic hardware in the landfill. So I want everybody to know about that. Secondly, I just wanted to say thank you again to all the people who applied for citizens boards. I know we're wrapping up our citizen advisory boards, and we've had such great applicants this year. I know we all would like to accommodate everyone who applied, and hopefully we will figure out how to do that someday. I appreciate what Rachel said about the methane bill. I'm sorry also that our representative doesn't seem to be getting what we're saying to him. The other thing I wanted to bring up for conversation in the future would be our neighboring county, Eagle County, has a development project about 4 miles from our county line with the tree farm. I think they're going to decide on that on June 1st. And people in Pitkin County I've had a couple of calls from people who said, hey, what are we doing concerning water? We've got water issues that involve us. It's in our watershed. There are affordable housing issues. There are development issues that perhaps we should, as a county, take some sort of position on. And I'm not sure how to do that, but I wanted to bring it up and maybe bring it in for discussion at some point soon.
We actually have sent several letters opposing and pointing out the problems of the development.
Right. We're on record. Yeah. We are on record, but anyone's certainly invited to
Somebody else
attend.
can put in.
Yeah, in the community, I think people should know this is coming, and this is their chance to speak out.
Okay. Anybody else? Last but not least, the old guy.
The honorable old honor.
Adjust my hearing aid. This Saturday is Arbor Day, and from 10 till noon at Pepsi Park will be the annual Arbor Day celebration in Aspen. It's also Dandelion Days in Carbondale this Saturday, and I think that goes from 9 or 10 till about 5 in the afternoon. So there are two really nice events. Those of you who are residents in Aspen can actually get a tree at the Arbor Day celebration.
You need to bring something that shows your address.
It shows that you are a resident of Aspen is important.
At noon they do the tree raffling. It's really fun.
So it's kind of one of the harbingers of spring and summer when these events take place this Saturday. Thank you.
Thanks for reminding, Steve. That was a good one.
All right, we'll move on to our consent action items. This is a single reading. It's consent item minutes, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 26th.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Next, we have two individual consideration items. These are public hearings, and these are our second readings. The first is an ordinance accepting a covenant agreement for occupancy of the Goober Family Trust Lot Split, Lot 2. And you don't look like Suzanne Wolf.
I am not Suzanne Wolf. Suzanne is actually traveling back today. She's in New York for the American Planning Association conference this week. Yeah. So this is second reading of this ordinance. And
who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not Suzanne Wolf. I'm Mike Kramer with Pitkin County Planning Staff.
Thank you.
And this is second reading of this ordinance. First reading was on April 26, 2017, and the board motioned to approve it on first reading. The applicant is Sonny Ranch, LLC, and the property is located at 1190 Mandalay Lane, Lot 1, Goober Family Trust Lot Split. And George, do you want a staff presentation on this, or do we need to?
You could do just a very brief overview since we've already seen this at first reading, and if there's anything new or different that we need to be aware of.
Sure. Nothing new or different, but what you have in front of you is an ordinance that accepts a covenant for this property, Lot 1 of the Goober Family Trust Lot Split. And this covenant is for the local occupancy, employee housing, and mitigation fee. And ComDev staff recently became aware that covenant is essentially a property interest, and that we should be adopting these covenants through ordinance by the Board of County Commissioner. Almost all of you have been chairwomen or chairmen before, and typically standard procedure was that ComDev staff would sign the covenant, and then send it over to the board for signature. But with this information coming to light, we are now adopting these by ordinance, which is per our home rule charter. So there has been basically no changes since first reading, and we are recommending that you adopt this on second reading.
Thanks. Questions? Patty, then
Yeah.
Steve.
Under the covenant, under general provisions 8, we need to decide on an address for the county. Are we using the Main Street address or the Basalt address? I just want to make sure the documents get sent to the right place, and I think you can pick which
Yeah,
one.
Let's hear from
during our interim period, we probably should change that to the 1, 2, 3.
So they're both going to Basalt. Then that's the only question that I have.
Thanks, Patty. Steve?
Yeah, Mike, does this mean that we are going to be going back and doing ordinances on all the various covenants that we have been approved and signed off by ComDev in the past?
It's my
on a
understanding.
case-by-case basis?
It's my understanding we won't go backwards to adopt all those by ordinance, but going forward for the time being, we will be bringing these covenants to you in ordinance form. We are working with the attorney's office to try and figure out a way to not have this much paperwork and staff time to do this, but as of right now, it'll be in the form of an ordinance.
Okay. Would you accept the motion, George?
Laura, did you have a...
No, I think Mike was clear. And if there's a change on that recommendation, that will be taken to you guys.
Okay.
I'd move to approve on second reading the ordinance accepting a covenant agreement for occupancy of Goober Family Trust Lot Split 2.
And George, it is. I don't know if I heard that. It is a public hearing.
I'm
in
waiting
this
to
one.
hear if we have a second.
Second.
This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this? Seeing none, I'll keep the public hearing open. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's see. Next is a resolution authorizing the Town of Snowmass Village Police Department to enforce county open space and trails regulations. And again, this is a second reading.
Hi, I'm Gary Tenenbaum, Director of Picken County Open Space and Trails, and I'm here to seek a resolution to allow the Town of Snowmass Village to enforce Picken County regulations on Picken County Open Space and Trails. And so we talked about this at first reading, and there was no changes, so we're here to seek approval on second reading.
So, Gary, when, if a Town of Snowmass Police Department does enforce an abuse on one of the trails, they have the ability to ticket, and they use our standards for ticketing, or how does that work?
It works just like that. They use our standard ticketing. So the resolution allows them to enforce Title 12 regulations. So they'll be able to write a Picken County ticket and be able to enforce on all the regulations in Title 12. And so we're getting we got already reciprocal enforcement capabilities where our rangers can enforce in the Town of Snowmass Village, and we enforce under their tickets.
All right, great. Any other questions for Gary?
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the Town of Snowmass Village Police Department to enforce county open space and trails regulations.
I'll second that.
Hey, this is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this point and bring it back to the board. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
We're going to move on to our individual consideration items. These are first readings set for public hearing on May 24th. The first is an ordinance accepting the dedication of a road right-of-way easement from AML Investment 4 LLC.
Thank you, George. I'm G.R. Fielding, the Pekin County engineer. The BOCC may remember accepting an easement along Red Mountain Road a few months ago. That ends this action. were originally discussed in 2005 with the George family lot split. And so this item today begins the last step of the process of accepting those rights of way. This is part of the 76 Placer Lane parcel, and it is immediately adjacent to the right of way that we accepted a few months ago. In your packet, there's a map that we produced to show where that easily show where that right of way is, adjacent to Red Mountain Road, below the home on 76 Placer Lane. Staff from the attorney's office, community development, and from my department have all reviewed and approved, and we ask that you do the same.
Can you have the ability to show this map up on the screen?
It's the camera.
The camera.
Look, yeah.
There
okay,
you go.
see it.
There you go.
There you go.
There we go.
GR can figure it out.
It's not exactly the clearest thing.
It's got a little glare.
On the top of this map, you can sort of make out what would be Placer Lane. Just out of frame is the intersection of Placer Lane and Red Mountain Road. The bottom of the map would be, just out of view, is the intersection of Willoughby Way and Red Mountain Road. The intersection at the top is about 2,200 feet, if memory serves, from when you go across the bridge. And the right-of-way that we will be accepting is on the right side of the road as you drive up that steep first portion of Red Mountain Road.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for GR? Steve?
GR is the part that we accepted a few months ago in the undeveloped triangle portion on the corner.
Yeah, it's the piece to the north. So it would start just to the north of that blue dotted outline that's in the center of this map.
Okay, so that would complete the right-of-way acquisition going up Red Mountain Road?
Yes.
Okay.
This is, yeah, I understand we're just kind of cleaning this up because it could have happened many years ago. This is just a side note, and I'm going to address it to the county attorney's office. We still haven't found out for the issue with regarding the vegetation removal on this property. We still have not heard who the tree cutting service was out of Grand Junction, and I think I've asked a few times, and that's part of our agreement, and I think we should just follow up on that. It really has nothing to do with easement. I just was a reminder to me to ask about that because I think this easement is much needed, especially we did a tree removal through that section for emergency ingress egress. So I think it's nice that we're finally cleaning this up.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Patty. It was clearly a representation made during the meeting by the applicant.
Right.
Any other questions for GR at this point? I would accept the motion.
I'll move to approve an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County accepting the dedication of a road right-of-way easement from AML Investment 4 LLC.
I'll second that and move it to second reading on May the 24th.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, GR.
Thank you.
Thanks, GR.
Next is a resolution adopting a memorandum of understanding between the Governor's Office of Information Technology, Public Safety Communications Network, and Pitkin County. And this is the first reading, again, set for public hearing on May 24th.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Kruger, Communications Site Manager for Pitkin County. Phyllis was originally supposed to present this. She's on vacation in Florida.
Oh, nice.
So John and I drew straws. I lost her one, however you want to look at it.
You won.
Yeah. Anyway, this is an MOU between the state of Colorado and Pitkin County for them to perform software upgrades on our DTRS system. The software upgrades are 7. They have 7 over the course of the next 8 years, up until 2025. I'm not sure how they predict how many software upgrades they're going to do over the course of that period, but they do. And so this MOU is strictly to allow them to do software upgrades within our system, as well as provide access to our various sites. So they will have codes to get into the various comm sites on our mountaintop sites, which actually they already do have codes to get into these sites since they maintain this equipment already. There is, I do want to clear something up in this in case, I'm sure you've looked over it, but there is no cost associated to county on this MOU. This is, there's a cost table that they presented in Exhibit A, and the cost table is only if county elects not to connect our system to the state zone controller. So, which I don't understand why we would ever do. This whole point of us going to DTRS is to reduce our maintenance costs.
I just have one question.
Patty?
On page 2, at the bottom of the resolution, it says, now therefore be it resolved, upon satisfaction of the, it's a bottom paragraph, upon satisfaction of the county attorney as to form. Has the attorney's office reviewed this, Laura? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so by second read, because this is a first reading,
yes,
I'd just like to make sure that the attorney's office has had a chance to review it.
Okay, Steve.
Let's see, I have two questions. First of all, when they do these upgrades, are they doing it across the whole state?
Yes, they are.
On every mountaintop?
In fact, they're doing these MOUs with every county. So.
Okay. And on that page with the price breakdown, I noticed that they have 43 repeaters in Pickens County listed needing upgrades. Now, the repeaters, in my understanding, would be for the FM radio and for the television, not for the DTR.
This is purely for DTRS.
So why do they have that?
We use the term repeaters and channels interchangeably. So a repeater in a DTRS system is really a channel, but it's basically the DTRS trunk system. The way it works is there's for each one of the sites there's repeaters, and when someone is wanting to do a radio request, they get a channel on that repeater.
So, for instance, Ajax has 4 repeaters, so there are 4 different channels available on the DTR system?
Correct.
Okay. That explains that.
Any other questions?
I'll make a resolution. I'll make a resolution to motion. I'll make a motion to pass a resolution adopting a memorandum of understanding between the Governor's Office of Information Technology, Public Safety Communications Network, and Pickens County. This is a first reading, set for second read, public hearing on May the 24th.
Second that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jeff.
Great. Thank you. See you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Unless you draw the short straw and win or lose, right?
We're going to move on to our public hearing. These two items are both one reading. The first is an application for a new retail liquor store submitted by the Meredith General Store at 22955 Frying Pan Road, Meredith.
Okay, I think Jeanette had something to add.
George, I don't see the applicant here for the Meredith General Store. Would it be okay if we take the applicants?
We certainly can switch. Okay, so let's hold that one. Hopefully they'll show up. The other application is for renewal of a retail marijuana products manufacturing license for Colenti Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Cannabis Queen Jerky, 214 AABC.
Okay. Jeanette Jones, Deputy County Clerk. What we're presenting to you today is a renewal of a marijuana application, and I have with me today Todd Gardner, and Grafton Smith is hanging in the background. And Kurt Dahl had a phone conference, and I think he'll show up here very shortly in case we have questions for him, but his memo is in your packet. In May of 2016, the board approved a marijuana application. They approved 2 licenses, one for a medical and one for a retail license for what was then known as the Sausage Queen. And since that time, the applicants have changed their trade name. Med has approved the trade name change along with the Colorado Secretary of State, and it's now known as a Cannabis Queen Jerky. With respect to the medical license issued in 2016, Todd is requesting that license not be renewed, so we're just moving forward with an application on the retail license at this point. For the benefit of Commissioner Poshman, I have included pretty much all the literature of the previous application just for your benefit, so that you could get an overview of the application. The Environmental Health Department, there is a memo in your packet from them. Another referral to the Sheriff's Office, to Joe DeSalvo. He didn't have any comment on this application. I did refer it out to the Marijuana Council, and I didn't receive any comments back from them. So there is, on page 6 of your memo, there are the conditions that were included in the license in 2016. The applicant is asking for two changes to the conditions, and they're underlined in red. I hope, if they're not underlined in red in your packet, I believe it's in color, but we'll be happy to repeat those for you. And then I think I'm just going to let Todd talk about what those amendments are.
Okay, any question for Jeanette first? Yes, Rachel.
Jeanette, have you
I'm
received
sorry.
any complaints from?
No complaints. I'm sorry. I meant to mention that also.
No complaints by neighbors or
No.
others? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
And we did conduct a site visit last week. Phyllis Mattice and myself went on a site visit, and the facility was very, very clean, very organized, and it was interesting. See,
She couldn't find it at first.
Oh, I couldn't find
had to
it.
call us a couple times to.
There was no signage out there.
He said, good, if you can't find us, nobody else can. So
Great. Thanks for that.
Oh, okay. So I think I'll just turn it over to Todd and let him
Sure.
talk to you.
You notice we're requesting for these requirements to be changed a little bit with removal of 6 and 8. We think that the MED, Marijuana Enforcement Division, has these requirements covered really well. And as we've kind of evolved in the business, we kind of need to be able to eventually come out with additional products in that would, in order to do that, we'd need to have different color variations with our packaging, because right now the limitation is to the black and white. And obviously there's only really 2 types of packaging we can come out with. And I brought samples of our existing packaging, which you guys have all seen before. And this is our hot and spicy jerky. And since then, we've come out with we have a teriyaki jerky as well, which is black with the reverse on the white. In the future, we've looked at potentially creating some other products, and one of those that we hear a lot of people asking for in a jerky protein product is a CBD-based product. So obviously, if we came out just with a CBD-based product, there's really no differentiation. CBD?
What does it stand for?
That I don't know, but it's a component of the marijuana plant that people take for various medical reasons and so forth. I don't know the exact chemistry behind it and that. So anyway, in order to do that, and we've also been approached by different people to potentially do contract manufacturing and oil extraction for them and so forth, to kind of diversify our portfolio, if you will, of what we're doing. The industry right now, just so you're all aware, is under severe price deterioration when it comes to all products, including edibles. So in order to stay viable, we need to continue to expand our product offerings to be relevant in the market. As As far as number 8, the 10 milligrams per piece.
Well, let's go back to number 6 first,
ahead.
because there may be questions. So I don't understand, even though you want to expand your product, why we need to change the coloring.
Well, I'm not sure how we can go and create another product and differentiate it if we can only use the colors of black and white. I think it's kind of hard. What we're really looking for, we don't want, there's really a trend right now in the business to get away from all the colorful packaging. Because the MED actually has in the new rules, there is a rule in there that specifically says they don't want it appealing to children in that. So there's been a huge move away from colors on packaging to more of a 2-3 tone color scheme where it's just solids. So it's not this appeal to kids in that. And we don't want to have brightly colored packaging, but what I could envision was to use like a silver in conjunction with white or black to show that differentiation in products on the shelves of a dispensary. So that's really what we're looking for. We're not looking to make a colored, multicolored, schemed package.
So that really is not addressed in this licensing, because there's no guarantee that if we delete this, that down the road we may see different colors unless we require that the applicant come back before us each time they have a new product for coloring. So I'm not sure how we would best oversee that. Rachel?
Yeah. Thank you for the more detailed explanation, and I think it's good that they're moving away from this kind of tricolor cotton candy, type of promotion. I think George is correct in that we should have something in the language here, but I'm wondering if perhaps we can think about that during the rest of the hearing and other questions or answers. But I could see adding that all products shall be in childproof containers, blah, 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 and that it shall, that single solid colors along with black and white are allowed on the packaging. And I know that might not be the tricolor, but let's start slow. We can talk again next year, but that way it makes sense to me. When you have the gluten-free product in the store, they have a different color label than the other label for non-gluten-free flours and things like that. So I could see having a dark blue background, dark red background, or just some sort of not pop color, and make it a single color with black and white allowed for product differentiation.
Well, just to clarify what we were still thinking just the 2 colors, excluding, obviously this symbol, the THC symbol, is required by the state in red, but we were just thinking 2 colors, like a platinum and white, or silver and black, or something along.
So that's a single color with black and white.
Right.
So we could, or we should write that in then.
Yeah.
As part of this license, so it's very clear.
A new number 6 kind of language.
Okay. Other questions, Steve, and then Patty.
A question for Laura. Laura, on the Pitkin County regulations that we've adopted, do we have any rule about the coloring of the packaging?
We don't, but it's within your purview to impose restrictions on any sort of applicant in the way that was done previously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, Steve, that's because very few are actually production facilities. Others are outlets, and they're buying the product from other places, but this is produced here.
I have suggested change to the wording on, and I'm looking on the actual license where I wrote it was the license from last year, and it would be the number 3 item. And one way we could do it is to say all products shall be in childproof containers that comply with state marijuana enforcement MED packaging regulations. So that eliminates any reference to the color. Or we could say all products shall be in childproof containers with inner and outer single, the wording we were using, the single color packaging that complies with the regulation.
John?
Just for context for the board, if it might help the discussion, when the board put these requirements in place, the MED rules were not in place. And so the board at that time was, I think, providing a bridge until the MED regulations came out. One of the ways you might want to look at this is not to replicate, what's already in the what's already in the state regulations. However, if there are additional requirements, for example, this board had imposed a Spanish language requirement, which I don't believe is in the state regulations. That may be something that you want to leave in number 6. The color, to the applicant's point, is an additional requirement, and so do you want to keep that or not? But you may want to start over and think about it in terms of, are there additional requirements that you think are appropriate for our community, and not try and replicate what's already been done by the state.
All right, thanks. Patty?
Mine was very simple. Just rewrite 6 to say, all product jerky shall be in childproof containers with inner and outer packaging that complies with state marijuana enforcement packaging regulations, and such literature on the packaging still be in English and Spanish.
I would still ask that we include limiting that color. So right now it says black and white packaging. The applicant is asking just for a platinum or silver and black, or silver and white, whatever that color is. I would just add that and make it very clean and very clear, so there's no confusion.
But then if he has 4 products, he's going to have to come out for navy blue and lime green.
No, but I'm not hearing that, and next year he'll have to come back for renewal anyway.
Yeah, that's why, kind of a hybrid between the two here is to say the black and white packaging plus 1 additional color. That way,
the state regulations.
Yeah, all that first, absolutely. But that way, if they do in 6 months have a 4th product or a 5th product, and they want to choose gold and black and white and platinum and black and white and green and black and white, that's fine. But that way, I don't want to leave it wide open, similar to George, because, and I'm not saying anything about you, but this is always precedent for other companies and other activities that I wouldn't want to see it start to be a rainbow or things like that. Even if that's not the trend now, it might be the trend again later. So
I think the issue is that the state, it's my understanding the new state regulations for infused products is very clear on no flamboyant rainbow colors, but if you want to just add that to be clear, I just don't want to have the applicant to have to come back in 3 months and then 4 months and then 5 months, and if he comes up with a new product, it would still be comply with the rest of our regulations.
Yeah, I just want to be clear because based on the debate they were having, it's like who's going to be the judge of what is flamboyant, what is appealing to children, what if you just have a bunch of flowers on it of yellow daisies, is that appealing to children? So I think this just keeps it clear for Picken County.
Okay.
Greg?
I would just think that maybe an easier solution on something like this regarding color, just because color is really subjective, but you can say there's a certain tonal range in color. It can't be hot pink, but it could be something with a darker tone. So you have a choice of a color palette, but it's not going to be kitty colors, primary colors, bright colors. It's going to be a darker red or a darker blue or a darker green. So you have your choices, but this isn't something that's going to be eye-catching and appeal as much as it's an identification. That way it solves your problem of labeling, but it doesn't. It solves our problem of making sure we're not promoting something that looks like a kiddie product. Because it's not particularly you, it could be someone else. So maybe just a tonal rule is the general rule.
I guess I think we're making this much more complicated. Yeah. Todd has made a request for 1 color change, and that color change is?
Well, we don't know. I mean,
he's saying.
I just gave that to this.
Oh, I thought that was color change.
Saying it could be multiple packaging with a bronze and a silver and a black. So but I don't want to have a easel, a painter palette on the resolution saying these are the color choices.
Just to be clear, we obviously are trying to create a brand here, and we don't want to have these colors. It's not our goal, not our objective, is to have bright colored. We know it's not your goal, and this is not ours. And
I think a single color addition
what's
to the
the proper
packaging.
word for a non-bright color?
Yeah, well, this is why I'll go back to, if we just say a single color, they can use black, they can use white, and they could use whatever deep maroon, light blue that they want, but just not multiple colors, and we don't have to get into tonal. I think it helps create an image. Actually, you'll have some very solid stuff, even though it's in different potential color groups. And I just want to say, there's the issue of children accidentally eating mistake, which is they've gone a long way to eliminate that threat. But you also have 17-year-olds, and so you don't want to get into something that appeals to a young adult, through the marketing. So just keeping with allowing a single color plus the black and white, any graphic artist can work well with that.
So a hot pink would work for you?
If it was a band of
It's a
hot
single
pink,
color, yeah.
Pink lips?
no, just
it
a
won't
band.
work for me though. So just so you
Yeah, I was
know,
going to
so.
say.
He's more the bronze kind of guy. So
All right.
I don't know if it would work.
let's just keep it simple then. Jeanette, did you follow where we were going? I hope.
I do. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The next issue, Todd?
And to follow along with that, so since we last met, it was actually in the process of being implemented, but since has is the new red THC symbol that's been every package. And we like the Spanish requirement to disappear, because with what's happening with the labeling now, there's many requirements as they've added on to us for labeling, and there's another one coming, that in order to fit everything on, we would have to change our packaging to a plastic dram childproof container. And believe it or not, even if we wrap this one with all the labeling requirements, we try to fit it in both, we still can't fit it on this one, so we'd have to go to a bigger plastic container for each piece, and that would be, to my mind, an environmental disaster. So one of the big reasons they did the THC symbol was to cover that, so it's like a stop sign. No matter what language you speak, you're covered with the THC symbol. And so,
Rachel?
Yeah, just to kind of drill down on that a little bit further. Currently, it says such literature on the packaging shall be in English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. And what I'm wondering is, I guess that means everything has to be fully translated. And would it work to have a single statement in Spanish on the packaging without pushing you over that ledge, to be able to, just say in Spanish, this product contains marijuana, or this product is for adults and contains marijuana. It just more of a single sentence rather than having to translate everything.
One thought we had possibly as a solution would be to, right now we put our cards in each one, our edible education cards, mm-hmm. Which, by the way, we're still the only ones in the state that actually do that, is to print some cards to give them to dispensaries so they have them, and they could hand them out when they potentially sold our product.
Yeah, but again, just a single line or 4 words in Spanish, this product contains marijuana, or adult use only.
We could,
contains
yeah,
marijuana.
something like adult use only, or
contains
Spanish,
marijuana.
Yeah,
that way, yeah. It's a short, simple statement
sure,
that
no.
anyone could see clearly on the front.
Gotcha.
I agree.
I think something like that rather than the full translation of every word.
Gotcha.
I agree with that.
Greg?
I look at these little packages I get. If you get the Aleve or Motrin or any of these, they have got several pages of information printed in very fine print. So I don't believe you can't fit it on the label. I don't get that one. I think you guys could do it. If you really wanted to, you could make it work.
And nobody could read it.
There's actually, in the regs, there's actually we are only allowed to go to a specific font size. We can't go any less. And so you're probably right. If we could go to the fine font size that a lot of that stuff is printed in, which I still can't even read with my glasses, we could probably get there. But with the current requirement of font size, it's just not.
So the label is actually physically that much bigger by
it is. It's a massive amount of information.
Okay, thanks.
So Rachel, what were you
In Spanish?
The packaging shall include the phrase in Spanish for adults only and contains marijuana.
Yep.
I'm fine. I think that does what we wanted it to do. We just wanted to have something on there so that our Spanish-speaking population wouldn't by mistake.
That's doable.
Thanks.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. That takes care of number 6. Number 8, it was highlighted.
Oh, we just feel that requirement's all, it's in the updated rules and regs. They're very specific on the 10 milligrams, and they've implemented random testing and just trying to eliminate some of the ones that are duplications that maybe didn't exist when we were here last time.
And they didn't.
And Laura, has the attorney office gone through this to ensure that what we're hearing is correct?
No, but I can quickly verify the 10 milligram requirement. The question for the board to consider is whether, if there's a change in the med requirements, if you would still want this to be there. The decision last time was regardless of what the med requirements were, you didn't want it to be more than 10 milligrams. So if there's any future changes, do you want this to still be present there? And I can look up the answer to the other.
Right.
I think we came to a rational decision on the 10, and we knew that the state was discussing limiting to 10, but I think Todd's right. Do we need to put it in there if it's already in the other regulations? And if at such time that changes, then we have to go back and put it in, or should we just leave it in there so it's clean and we don't have to bring it back again?
It's whatever you guys would like to do.
I think it'd probably be easier just to leave it in there, so if it changes, you'd have to come back before us before you could produce anything.
Because it would require staff to stay up to date on the regs, and I'm not sure that...
Yeah, and they could get lost in the marijuana shuffle.
Right. Steve?
So the state regulation talks about more than just a single piece standardized serving. It also talks about a multiple serving, which is allowed to have up to 100 milligrams of THC in a multi-serving thing, which conceivably could be a longer piece of your jerky that should be cut into 10 pieces to get the 10 milligrams per individual serving. And I can see there's different items that people produce, probably, maybe cheesecake or a cookie or something that might need to cut it up into smaller pieces in order to get the right dosage you want. So.
Right, but all we're talking about is jerky here. Is 10
milligrams. And just to your point on that, it specifically states in the regulations that each piece, if it is a multi-serve, just most of all edibles sold in 90% are sold in multi-serve. Mm-hmm. That's just the market now. Packaging's one of the biggest costs for any manufacturer's packaging. Packaging is unbelievably expensive. Just this container.
We don't want you going to that black container.
No.
I think this is another one we're making it too complicated.
Maybe so.
Because if you were packaging 5 servings, they would still be 5 individual pieces with 10 milligrams each.
Yep.
So I think that's what we're trying to get at, is that no individual serving can be more than 10. And I think it's important that they are divided into chunks, because you take a look at kind of regular food labeling packaging, and they say, only 100 calories in 2 tablespoons of the ice cream, and no one eats just 2 tablespoons of the ice cream. And so as long as they're broken into individual pieces that are no more than 10 in each piece, I don't care if you sell 5 or 10 in a multi-package. But I don't think it's good to have them as one continuum. I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I see Laura kind of wanting to jump in and clarify.
Just to clarify, the state regulations currently do say each piece can only be 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
George, sorry. In attachment 1 in your memo, there are the state regulations there, and just so you know, we did verify.
I was going to say, it doesn't hurt us, and I don't think it really impacts the applicant to keep this line in here. It's just clean, it clarifies, it just helps that we don't have to have staff
trying to keep up with any state regulations.
It applies just to the jerky per piece.
I agree with you, George. I think we may want to clarify the language a little better just because it's so broad. We could say each individual serving of jerky shall contain no more than 10 milligrams. So otherwise, it just says the jerky.
No, it says per piece. Number 8.
Okay. Maybe I'm sorry, Patty, I scratched
Jerky
some
shall
stuff.
contain no more than 10 milligrams THC per piece.
Okay, there you go.
Says it right there.
Okay.
Steve?
So we
I
can
would
leave it.
suggest that we do clarify it a little bit, and I would suggest saying the jerky shall contain no more than 10 milligrams THC per standardized serving, which is the language the state uses.
Okay.
And you could do the multi one, you could put 10 pieces in one thing if you wanted to, which some people might want to buy.
Does the state have standardized jerky servings?
Hold on, Patty.
So the standardized
hold on. There's, Laura?
So the state language speaks in terms of just wonderful product unit. So the language reads edible retail marijuana product unit.
I like per piece.
Does per piece work as
I think it's clear.
easy as
Okay.
per product
We'll
unit?
leave it that.
So
Very good,
let's
Patty.
just leave it as it is.
Okay.
Board okay with that?
I think that's great.
I'm okay
Leave it
with
as
it.
it is.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I see Kurt Dahl has shown up. Kurt, did you have anything to add? Jeanette gave a quick overview.
Don't forget your mic.
Thanks.
Do you want your...
I'm okay. I wasn't. All right, let me steal this from
Here
her.
you go. Here's your memo.
Thanks. Kurt Dahl, Pickens County, is that on? Environmental Health Manager. I don't really have much to add other than we did do 2 inspections of the facility, and I think we made a recommendation to go down to 1 inspection per year. I don't know if you saw that. That's typical of this type of facility. When we're working with other wholesale manufacturers, that is typically a lower risk factor, and so we set those inspections at once per year. I didn't know if you guys had discussed that at all before I got here, so I wanted to bring that point up.
No, we had not. So, Board?
It's my understanding that Todd's done a great job this first year, and there have been no issues, no complaints. So I think once a year, and if we have complaints that come in from the neighbors or something, then we can bring it back anytime we want.
Yeah, the facility itself, I'm sorry. The facility itself, they did a very good job in both inspections. We didn't note any violations at either inspection. And based on their production and when they're creating that beef jerky, that's actually a shelf-stable product after they're finished. So that takes the risk level down from some other operations that we have. So again, that was the basis of the recommendation to go to that 1.
So is the board okay with going to 1 inspection a year?
Kurt had, in your letter, you had 3 specific recommendations regarding the inspections. And I mean, that wording to me sounded good. It gave different scenarios that if there's foodborne illness complaints, then you could inspect the facility. It would be inspected once a year just as a normal procedure. And also, if Todd changed the types of products being infused at the facility, that you would do an inspection at that time. And to me, that sounds reasonable, that to have that in, just so Todd would know that's the expectation, that you will be there once a year. Under these other circumstances, you might be there again for a special situation.
Right, and the two of those were in there previously. It was just the change in the frequency of inspections. The foodborne investigation came from Summit County. Actually had an issue where there was some concern that there was a foodborne outbreak associated with the medical marijuana facility, and whether or not they had the authority
to do that investigation and go into the back of the room and work with those folks. So that's been a recommendation that's come out of the environmental health directors, just to clarify that role, since our roles are very clear when it comes to retail food, but infused marijuana, we're in that role where we're really relying on the local license to have some of those authorities. So, yeah.
So, clarification. So, in your recommendation, 3 conditions, the only one you're really changing is the once year to the twice year to once year. The other ones are already there.
Yes,
So we
correct.
don't need to double add. Trying to
Okay.
keep it simple.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Rachel?
I just want to clarify. You mentioned that because of the deteriorating market pricing structure and so on, and that may well continue as other states potentially move the way Colorado has, that you would maybe considering other products or people asking you to create the oils or something. Wouldn't that require a separate license from this production of jerky?
And that's why it was, the license itself was limited to production of jerky, and that's why we wanted to get that removed, is the word jerky. In our production process, if we could potentially extract oil for other people to increase our revenue and add additional revenue, or if somebody wanted a product.
And I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I'm just not sure that might not necessitate a separate license, because if you're producing oil that's kind of wholesale to another person, I'm not so sure that would fall under this license. I'm not saying I'd be opposed to it again, but it just sounds like it may be too big of an umbrella to actually cover wholesale oil productions to someone else. I mean, I see Laura kind of looking at that would probably require a different license.
Or an amendment of this license.
Or an amendment of this license, but we don't have anything specific at this time from you, so I think...
I can come back. I mean,
yeah, okay, good. That's what I was going to say. I just want to make sure you don't think this was...
I just want to let you know the direction we were looking, potentially.
Sure, and I appreciate that. I just don't want you to think we were granting broader authority today
Right, sure.
and get you in some sort of trouble. Thank you.
Steve?
Kurt also had a recommendation on the odor emanating from the facility, which is different wording than the one-liner on the current license. And the current license said there shall be no odor emanating from the facility. And we should decide, it should say at least there should be no marijuana odor emanating from the facility. Or we would maybe want to do Kurt's recommended language, which is,
I didn't realize it was different.
the facility must mitigate to the satisfaction of Pitkin County any marijuana odor emanating from the facility which has negative impact on neighboring properties. So that was Kurt's recommendation, and I think we should decide one way or the other.
Yeah, so you're saying that, if there's an odor of jerky in the air in general, like fried chicken coming from Clark's Market at lunch, that's not an issue, but if there's odor of marijuana, it is. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Steve?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit nebulous in, it just said there shall be no odor emanating from the facility. Well, if a truck is doing a delivery and is a diesel truck, it might smell like diesel. That's an odor emanating from the facility in a sense. So I think we should be more specific.
I think we can be more specific. Walking nearby, I love the odors of Louis Swiss Bakery. So, so this speaks specifically to odor emanating from marijuana products where we know is an issue.
Yeah.
So
we'll
I would agree
clarify
with
that.
that.
We'll add that.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this topic? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board if there's any further questions. If not, I'll accept a motion.
A question for Todd on the application. You mentioned that there would be 2 trips per month by van to the facility. But I think that's misleading because you have 2 employees coming every day and maybe they ride a raft bus and walk to the facility, but then you would have deliveries leaving the facility going to deliver the product presumably to retail establishments, and I think your 2 trips per month might be when the meat is being delivered to you for processing into the jerky. And I wanted to just clarify what the accuracy of that and what how many trips actually are generated.
Yeah, I think it is more than 2. I didn't catch that, but yeah, it's so just right now my 2 employees, they both take the Rafta bus. They live in Glenwood, but we get UPS comes to deliver our meat. So any UPS deliveries I didn't count as it would be. They would, when we initially thought of that, they wouldn't be additional because UPS comes to our building all the time to deliver to my other business as well as the fireplace business, and so we didn't count those as additional trips. But the courier services come basically once a week, and I didn't count my personal trips as trips there because I go there to work at my other business anyway. So the number's greater than 2. What the real number is I'm not sure, but it's not that great. Still really a small count.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
There's dozens of taxis coming and going every day to the building.
Yeah.
And whether you could have 2 trips a day related to this production facility, that wouldn't change the traffic pattern substantially. But I think just for accuracy, the more accurate you could make that statement in the future would be, I think, wise thing to do.
We haven't had any complaints about traffic, so obviously we don't have traffic generation concerns.
Speaking of traffic on that road, and this is away from this subject, obviously, but my lot is the most turned around lot probably in the county. So I don't know whether there's anything that can be done, because I don't know whether it's an issue with the mapping software people have on their phones that they're using, but if I could just charge people to turn around in my lot, I'd be doing okay. But it's a lot, so I don't know whether. Anyway, that's a different subject, but I throw that out there.
I think you need to talk to John McBride about that.
They put 1 sign up. I mean, 1 sign's not quite enough.
Yeah.
So.
I'm ready for a motion.
So I would move to approve a renewal of a retail marijuana products manufacturer license submitted by Caliente Enterprises, doing business as Cannabis Queen Jerky, with the suggested wording changes that we have put into it.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back up to the frying pan. This is an application for a new retail liquor store submitted by the Meredith General Store at 22955 Frying Pan Road, Meredith.
I believe our applicant's representative is here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you. What we're presenting to you today is a new...
Jeanette, don't forget your microphone needs to come back.
Where'd it go? Okay. A new retail liquor license application, and it's being submitted by Pam Woolley. And I wanted to just mention that Pam is finishing her military commitment back in
in San Antonio.
San Antonio. And this I have with me today, Marilyn Lee, Pam's aunt, who, if there's any questions that you need to ask, she's a little more familiar with the area and believes she'd be willing to answer them. It's a pretty short application. The Meredith liquor store hasn't, I think it was 2012 is the last time that it was an operating retail liquor store. So we're kind of excited about it for this community up here. And I'm not, has the store been opened?
No, I don't think
since that time. So Pam is applying for the liquor store, and as she is going to open up the general store. So that's kind of an exciting, again, for that community up there. In your packet is the application, or excuse me, not the application. The application has a lot of personal information on it, and I think I said in my packet that it was for review if you wish to do that, but it's pretty straightforward. There is a petition by the neighborhood in the packet and the floor plan. The applicant did ask for a concurrent review with the state. I just heard before this meeting that the state is approving this license. It will be forthcoming in the next couple of days. So when Pam gets here, she'll be, upon your approval, she'll be ready to go into business.
Great.
So in a normal retail liquor store license application, as part of that application process, are you supposed to designate or denote hours or days of operation?
That is, yeah. That will be on the license, and it's also on the state license.
And what is that, Marilyn? Or Jeanette? What will the hours be and the days of operation be?
The hours are 11 to 2.
11 to 2.
I think they're going to be longer than that.
You're proposing
in the liquor store.
In the liquor store.
If you just identify yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm Marilyn Lee. And Pam Woolley, who is going to operate this, is my niece. The building is owned by my two brothers, Daryl and Larry Woolley. They have owned that since the 60s, so they're very happy to think that it's going to operate again. So
okay.
I do think she might be assuming those hours might be.
The hours can be from 8 a.m. to 2, but Pam specified that she was probably going to do it from 11 to 8, excuse me.
So, but the hours that are allowable are 8 to 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So not
2 a.m.
8 to 2 a.m.
8
okay,
to 2 a.m.
I don't think it'll be.
So we can, if she wants to open at 8, she's allowed to do that.
But do we have any discretion in terms of those hours at all? If, say, we don't want to have those hours extended to 2 a.m., do we have the discretion to do that?
Well, there's discretion to weigh the impacts to the community and issues of the like, so I think that is something you could look at.
I think we should.
Yeah. I always was under the impression it was a 10 p.m. closing for liquor stores.
It is not.
It was,
until
Rachel, I believe, when you were sitting in council, but that has been changed.
Yeah.
So I think we should consider, even though she may not want to keep it open that late, we should consider a closing time and whatever the board thinks is reasonable.
I agree with George. You know, it's something that, as they say, you can plan ahead a little bit. And if you haven't planned ahead and you've decided at 12:30 p.m. a.m. you need another bottle of wine, you may well be getting on the road a little bit shaky to begin with. And so, I would agree with that. And I don't think, frankly, it would make business sense, in that limited community to stay open late anyhow. But I think that I agree very much with what George is saying. And the other one comment I'd have, and it's just an assumption here that Kurt Dahl will probably be inspecting the general store facility if it's been closed for so long, in terms of if there's refrigerated milk and are the refrigerators working well and things like that, just because it's been closed long. It's a little separate from the liquor license, but again, if the store's reopening after being closed for that long, I think it's important that there be a health inspection, since food products will be sold there.
So I would suggest 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay. I would go to 10 p.m.
Well, you've got a lot of campers up there too, and the campers can get rowdy, and the residents are not really happy about that in general.
Did we hear of any comments from the residents about that, though, in our packet?
Well, this hasn't gone before the Frying Pan Caucus because they haven't met yet, so...
Just so for reference, I believe in town the hours are generally anywhere between 8 and 10, and generally on the Fridays, Saturdays, it's still 10, 8 during the week, Sunday through Thursday, and then 8 a.m. I don't even know if they open at 8 a.m. in town, but I don't think she's going to be open at 8 a.m. to sell wine, but one never knows. I would do 8 to 8 Sunday through Thursday, and 8 to 10 Friday and Saturday.
And Marilyn thinks that would be sufficient for this operation.
So Patty suggested 8 to 8 Sunday to Thursday,
8 to 10.
Friday and Saturday,
Oh, yeah, Friday, Saturday, okay.
the last 2 days of the week.
I just don't want to be inconsistent. You know, what is the closing hours of selling wine in Redstone? You know, did we make them close at 8 p.m. or discontinue the sales? So I would just look for consistency across that standard. It seems a little like...
I'm just saying, I think that's what they do in town, as consistent.
Yeah, well, I don't know that, you know, most of them stay open till at least 10, whether it's Monday through, you know, Sunday in town. Carl started closing earlier, that's because they closed the whole place. So again, I'm just looking for consistency. I you know, between the old Snowmass Conoco, Redstone, if they're all 10 o'clock, I think this should be 10 o'clock.
We don't know what they are.
I don't think we imposed any restrictions beyond the state. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I'd be comfortable with going 8 to 10, and I doubt your niece is going to want to keep that store open that long anyway.
7 days a week?
Right.
7 days a week? Okay, that's fine.
I think the important thing is I'd be in favor of having the liquor store in Meredith, so you won't have people who are up there in the summer who all of a sudden need to drive all the way to Basalt to get something and perhaps be drinking on the way back up, and that would increase the danger on the road. And having this liquor license there in Meredith, to me, makes a huge amount of sense for people who, they want to go in and get some beer, they're there fishing, and it's going to save a lot of driving up and down the Frying Pan Road for different people.
Yeah. Then they could just pick up at the store there and drink on the way back down to Basalt.
Yeah.
Well, if that's where they're going.
All right, so I think everyone's comfortable with 8 to 10?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm not going to...
8 to 10, right?
8 to 10, 7 days a week, if she
And
so
Marilyn,
chooses.
is there do you anticipate a seasonal opening and closing, just for general information?
Really, I do. I don't think she'll keep it open in the winter. Just probably through hunting season, which I assume is around November 15th at the latest, and starting usually probably Memorial Day in May.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to make any comments on this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further questions from the board? This will make the caucus meetings a little more interesting.
Yes, maybe so.
I'd move to approve the application for a new retail liquor store license submitted by the Meredith General Store, LLC.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. And George, prior to bringing another application forward, I will do a survey and see what time these stores are closing.
That'd be great, just so
Yeah,
we
and
have
then,
it is. I know it is variable.
the caucus meeting will be meeting next month, so I'm sure it'll be a interested discussion as well.
Right. Especially if she's up and running.
Okay, before we move into our land use action items, does the board need to take a break at all?
Yeah, let's take a few.
Yeah, let's take a minute.
10-minute break?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
1:40, be back.
Coming right along.
for that.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to our land use action items. Are these public hearings, these two items? It just says land use public hearings and land use actions.
Neither of these are public hearings.
Neither of these are public hearings. Okay, I may take comments on one. Okay, the first is forwarding the UGB residential new lot growth management scores.
Okay, thank you. Mike Kramer with Pickens County Planning Staff, and this memo is the forward of the P&Z Planning and Zoning Commission of Pickens County from a growth management quota system subdivision application, and the P&Z heard a subdivision request on May 2nd, and the applicant at that time was 501 Buttermilk LLC. It's a Skybeam subdivision. That's the name that they gave the subdivision. The subdivision request will come before the board at a future hearing, and we will put that on the board agenda. But for this purpose, we are only forwarding the scores to you as required by the code. In our growth management quota system, when someone is requesting a new lot, GMQS allotment has to be achieved in order for that new lot to get created and developed. In this case, the applicant was requesting 10,750 square feet of residential floor area. And per the code, there's 23,000 square feet available for this competition. The applicant met the minimum threshold, which is set at 13 in the land use code. Their score was 14. And staff recommended a score of 14, which the P&Z adopted, and you can see the P&Z resolution that's attached to this memo. The board doesn't have any action at this time. This is just a forwarding of that score.
All right. Actually, I don't have the P&Z attached on my email e-package. So my question is, what were some of the high points in terms of the community benefits for the scoring for the GMQS?
Sure. There was without having a map to show you, this is a lot that was once owned by the city of Aspen and was part of the Burlingame transaction. And if you remember, as you go up West Buttermilk, there's a switchback and another switchback. And at one time when the city owned it, they sold it with a development right. A house got built, and there's about 26 acres remaining in that lot. A new owner has purchased this and requested to subdivide it, and with that subdivision they are proposing to dedicate a conservation easement to open space trails for 26 to another open space property that the city of Aspen owns, Aspen Valley Land Trust. That's one of the big benefits. Another one is in this application, the applicant will to contribute money to a single track connector trail, which would access off the Oregon Trail, which is accessed off the government trail. It's on the face of Buttermilk Mountain, but it's an identified single track connector to Butterline Trail that ultimately hooks into Sky Mountain Park. Those were the two big significant commitments made in this.
So the first one you mentioned, the access, the conservation easement on the open space and trails, where's the access? Is there parking?
This actually wouldn't be a public conservation easement. This would be a private, well, I shouldn't say private. It would be held by Pickens County, but would not be accessible to the public.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's on that little knoll as you're going up Owl Creek and you go up around the corner. It's that knoll that sits up in there. Oh, it's that knoll that sits up in there.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Rachel?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Mike. 13 points is the threshold. This scored 14. What's the kind of maximum that someone could score if they got a perfect score?
It's in the code. I think they can score an 18 or a 20, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah. I was just kind of wondering, when it's only 1 point over threshold, you kind of wonder how close it was to that. And I guess I'll make a comment. I'm kind of disappointed by this, because when the city did sell that lot, they thought it was in conformance with, county regs, and there wouldn't be too much free market growth and development on it. And, to hear that it was then lot split and another 10,000 square foot put on it, I think the city could have sold it for a lot more if they were trying to maximize development potential for the housing fund. So, that's just disappointing. And I was under the impression, although I know there was some sort of wiggling around it with the first residents of visual and height size limitations to try to, again, in selling off some of the land, not overly burden free market growth, while at the same time returning some revenues to the housing fund. But it certainly wasn't something that the city looked at and said, hey, we could divide this into 2 lots and sell 2 lots and make X amount more. I guess it's just disappointing.
We're just forwarding scores right now, board, and you will see the subdivision application come before you in probably like a month and a half, 2 months, and we'll get into the specifics of it. But Rachel, you have a really good memory. That parcel actually, before the city of Aspen sold, it had a conservation easement almost in the same capacity as the applicant is getting now. And what happened was that before the city sold it, they placed a conservation easement on the property. And what didn't happen is they did not attach a legal description to the conservation easement. So when it sold to the new owner ran and did not produce an easement on it. Prior subdivision application, and in the course of that, at that time, got into a lawsuit with the city of Aspen in there too, and I can't remember the specifics of it, but it ran to the courts and determined that the conservation easement was not applicable because it didn't have a conservation easement legal description for it. That's part of, you see that, and we'll get into it in a couple months.
Well, that kind of brings up a question again for me. 5750 is our basic house size. Do they have, is there a by right that we can go up to 10,000 square foot there? It didn't seem to have underlying zoning because it was a newly created parcel to begin with, coming off of Burlingame.
It's in the UGB.
Is there any way to limit that size further from this point?
The P&Z has formal action to take on the GMQS portion of this.
Yep.
And 10,750 square feet was the gross floor area that the applicant presented. They did further commitments with limiting above grade floor area to 8,250. The rest would have to go into a basement. That zoning out there is AR10, so agricultural residential 10-acre zoning. And it does have the ability to go up to our maximum 15,000 square feet. So it's within the rules, but you're right, it's a big ask in this case.
And will there be a site plan review that comes to our board?
This application does not include, the subdivision application that you'll see in a couple months won't have a site plan review. They've only requested activity envelope at this time. But site plan review will be required before they submit for a building permit.
Okay, because this is a lot closer down than a lot of the other buttermilk subdivision, would be a nice way to say it. It's not down, next to the airport runways, but it's not, and it's in a little bit of a swale. So I think the visuals, the height, and things like that are going to be very important to this board to take a look at, and I just want to put that in as a footnote when it comes back to us. Thank you. Sure.
Patty, then Steve? I just want to make sure it goes to now to the notice for people who want to challenge. Right? This is the process. We here, and then it goes to that, then it comes back to us for final approval. I just want to make sure the West owners are there, because I know there's some residents that were concerned about the previous house parcel. So I just want to make sure it heads up so we hear about it this time late.
In West Buttermilk District and the Oaks Homeowners Association are very aware of the application. They participated in the P&Z hearing too.
Perfect. That's what I want to know.
So my question is,
thanks, George.
They're putting the cart before the horse, regardless of what is. If we turn down the subdivision application in a month or two, what happens to this allocation of 10,000 square feet? Does it evaporate then?
That would be the right word. The subdivision application is it's a plan. The applicant would not get to where on the existing lot.
what would happen at the subdivision thing if we, subdivision's okay, but 5750 is the maximum we want. Could we do that and override the 10,000 square feet?
That's a good question. You know, the zoning commission awards allotments, and that's what, and I'm sorry, George, you don't have the P&Z resolution in front of you, but that's one of the charges. It's one of the few charges that he has to make action on a land use decision. You actually all area, and that comes after the appeal time frame of. So I think yes, there is a potential of the 10,000. Not to have.
Going to the board has probably never done that, except I did it when I was on P&Z, and it's not an easy task to do.
You can rescore.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just request that we have between you and the attorney's office kind of an outline of what the options are, what the process are, what criteria there may be for making a legitimate decision. And also, along with that, I just wanted to know, was the planning and zoning given this full history of how that lot was formed and the kind of lost intent of conservation already there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mike?
No.
It's a good history, good background, so. Anybody ready to make a motion?
We don't have to do anything.
We don't even have to make a motion?
Nope, all that for no motion.
Really? Okay. Next is the Mavic Hot Route Special Event Permit Review.
Okay, Mike Kramer with Pickens County Planning Staff again, and this is the Mavic Haute Route, which I've been corrected in saying, Major Special Event Review, and next to me is Chandler Smith, who is the Haute Route Race Director. And George, I was thinking for this one, if you don't mind, maybe I give a summary on the proposal, give process, so that we all remember what the code says as far as reviewing special events, and then give some key discussion points that the board may want to consider when asking Chandler and addressing issues in this permit application.
That's fine, and I also asked Mike to bring to us a list of what's currently going to happen in terms of running and bike race tours for this summer that's on the schedule.
Yep, and I have that with me too.
Great, thanks.
Okay, I can put it up on the screen. Okay, so this is a major special event application, and in the scheme of our land use code, special event applications are applied for on our special event website, and they are reviewed administratively, typically, by the Community Development Department with an admin decision rendered by the director. And in cases where we have large special events that impact the community, have potential impact to number of caucuses and neighborhoods, the planning department has the ability to forward the application to the Board of County Commissioners for review and decision. And you all remember some of the ones that you have looked at over the years. They include X Games as a really good example. The board has review and decision authority, and also the former Pro Cycling Challenge. The board has seen that a number of times over the years and has provided input and approval on that. This one rose to that level, we thought, for the number of riders that will be participating in the event, along with event staff. So here, your review procedure is to review the application in accordance with the code, and then we have a draft resolution for you. So the summary of the application is that in late June, Wednesday, June 28th, and Thursday, June 29th, Chandler has proposed the ride for between 350 and 400 amateur riders. There's approximately 100 to 150 support staff associated with the ride. And this application actually was made originally as a race. And I'll start off the staff presentation with that. This application has been amended, and the race format of this is not going forward. This is only a ride event with time sections, which we'll get into in a minute. So we reviewed the amended application as a special events committee under that capacity. In general, Wednesday, June 28th, the event will enter Pickens County from Lake County over Independence Pass. And given time frames and schedule of riders, we're thinking that that the ride will enter Pickens County in the afternoon. It'll come over Independence Pass, obviously along Highway 82. It'll go through town, through Aspen on Main Street, out to Highway 82, Highway 82 to Owl Creek Road to Sinclair Divide, or some people call it Owl Creek Pass. From there, Brush Creek Road to Wood Road, and then the ride completes for the evening in the town of Snowmass Village. That's day one. Well, I shouldn't say day one. That's the Pickens County portion, Wednesday, June 28th. Thursday, June 29th, the race starts approximately at 6:30 a.m. and riders will leave the town of Snowmass Village via Divide Road. From Divide Road, riders will enter on a Snowmass Creek Road to Capitol Creek Road to East Soapers Creek Road to West Soapers Creek Road over Prince Creek Divide down to Highway 133, and then Highway 133 up and over McClure Pass. There are 2 timing sections that the applicant is proposing, and we can get into the specifics of how that works and where and when, but the timing section would basically start in Old Snowmass and end at the top of Prince Creek Divide, and the second timing section for that day would begin on Highway 133 and then end at the top of McClure Pass.
Mike, a timing section may be just semantics. Is really a time? Is it a time trial?
I'm sorry.
Is it a time trial?
I think that's what the applicant is proposing.
So it's like a race. Okay, I just want to make it clear. At least for me, it is. Okay, thanks.
That was my question too. Is a race versus a timed sections, and what's the difference? I mean, I don't like to play on words. You know, do we think we're not going to fall for it's timed or it's a race? Mm-hmm. So I think that needs to be clarified by the applicants, so we really understand what they mean by timing.
You know, also the specific location that's nebulously said in Old Snowmass, and another place it was West Soapers Creek Road up to a certain point. So I'd like to where, because if the timed race is going down Upper Snowmass Creek Road, which to me could be a very dangerous part of the ride, the way people drive going uphill there, I don't think having a race portion on that part would be suitable. Yep. But other places it would be suitable where it's safer. Yep. So we can find out more about that on your presentation.
Rachel, on that?
Yeah, I have a little bit of concern about that too, and maybe it's just because I don't fully understand the mechanics. But if you have 500 people and you're trying to tell them what their start time was and their finish time, doesn't that kind of mean they're going to have to be paced out once every 10 seconds or something like that? And isn't that going to cause more highway delay and for the public? So, you know, especially the one on 133 kind of heading up to McClure Pass, timing section begins and ends. I'm a little concerned about what does that mean? You have 500 racers waiting for their time to go and cars waiting behind them to go. And so that it sounds somewhat of an inconvenience to the traveling public. And this is, you know, the height of tour season for a town like Redstone. I'm not saying it'd be bad. Maybe some people take the break and go in and get a soda at the store and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, it might be something that really is a big traffic conflict on those areas. So I don't understand the mechanics of that as much. And so I'm not entirely sure I support the, quote, timed racing part. This is a 7-day event. Maybe there can be timing races on other sections of your overall 7-day event. The second thing I'd like to bring up is, you know, Divide Road is not paved. And if you're having people coming over Independence Pass, I'd be pretty sure they're going to be riding on road bikes. And then I don't know if there's going to be the type of support vehicles that people can change out bikes and use they'll be bringing 2 or 3 different bikes with them. But, you know, that's a very different item. And so to me, I'd want to make sure you're not going to have, for 500 riders, 100 support vehicles with change out of bicycles for people when they get off pavement, back onto pavement, in the course of on the road, and that could be really problematic. There's nowhere on any of this for people to kind of pull off and do business and change bikes up and things like that. So that concerns me. And similar to Steve's, that's a pretty dangerous road coming down from the Divide area. And then I guess the last question for now, and then I really welcome other comments and other people's concerns.
Well, because I do that, but I actually had interrupted Mike's presentation.
Sorry.
He's not done yet, so.
This is about...
No, that's fine, but...
Okay, thank you. Are they camping at Snowmass or hotels? Is Snowmass providing campgrounds, or is it going to be hotel where they end after the first day?
As I understand, hotels. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Okay, Mike, I'm sorry.
Okay, I wrote those all down.
Back on track, 'cause I got a lot more questions.
Yeah, the special event is comprised of the emergency responders, sheriff's districts, other jurisdictions, emergency manager. Was with the city of Aspen, who had their in which special event. Multiple jurisdictions, and all the concerns that the board is bringing discussing, and those are concerns that the committee on what the code says too. So our land use code in section 4-30-50I requires that special events basically are conducted in a safe manner that don't impact public services, that don't impact communities, don't impact traffic, or don't create a disruption basically to our rest of the world coverage. That's the special event committee term that we use. And the concern being that when a special event comes through, there's an emergency elsewhere, we don't want deputies and justices all tied up with our event such that they can't go and respond to the other emergency that our normal citizens may have. So with that, a large component of this is that Colorado State Patrol is going to be with this ride, and that alleviates a huge burden off our local sheriff's department. And staff has been in contact with the sheriff's department, and in fact, I spoke with operations manager just prior to the hearing here, and reiterated that CSP Colorado State Patrol will be with the ride the entirety, not only in the Pickens County portion, but throughout Colorado. And they have said that if conducted in the manner that the applicant is representing, and in the manner of complying with the conditions of the permit, that it theoretically should go smoothly. So I'd like to get that out there, because that is a large component of this. Another component of this is that, as you read in the staff memo, the Special Events Committee is making, and I have to say that we certainly are not with the applicant in a public setting where we had invited all the neighborhood groups and caucuses and different HOAs that are going to be impacted on this. We also met separately without the applicant too to discuss, and we are making the recommendation based on these mitigating conditions that are in the resolution too. So I'd just like to outline that. One of the the rules of the road are going to be a component of the format of this. And what that means is that there theoretically should not be what we call a peloton or a pack mentality, where these riders do not come together and ride together as you would have saw during the Pro Cycling Challenge. And that was an idea and a discussion item, not only with the applicant, but also with the Special Events Committee separately, where if we did have that mentality and we did have that pack, it would essentially be a road closure. And if a road closure was proposed with this special event, would not be recommending approval. Mile of it. And that is a condition in the resolution that we are, and not only will Colorado State Patrol be there to aid in enforcing that rule, I've been the sheriff's will have some staff able to also enforce that rule. And Chandler talked about self-enforcement of that rule too. So I wanted to put that out there. In the staff memo, we've that were pertinent and today. I do want to notice, or just to do that the special event committee hearing that we did was not a notice public hearing, so there wasn't a notice in the newspaper. There wasn't the standard posting of a sign or anything. So there may be people from the public that may want to comment on this application. All the caucuses, all the neighborhood groups do have the staff memo and the draft resolution. The Upper Snowmass Creek Caucus, if I'm saying that correctly, was present at the hearing, and they did provide comments, and as I understand, did not have any issues with the proposal. Other than that, we haven't heard from many other caucus groups opposing ROD. There's a couple things I just want to highlight for discussion points. One is that on Wednesday, June 28th, we all know it's very busy in town, and we are leading up to the 4th of July. I think one of the aiding factors in this recommendation from the Special Events Committee is that the proposal is for Wednesday, June 28th and June 29th, Thursday. And it's not a weekend. And weekends are typically our busiest special events times in the summertime. So that was one thing that we did discuss and helped us in making the recommendation. Coming down Independence Pass in the afternoon and riding through the city of Aspen, it will be congested. There is no ifs, ands, or but about that statement. And there was discussion about possibly putting the riders on the Hopkins Trail over the Morrill Bridge and onward to Elk Creek Road. The City of Aspen Parks Department was present at the hearing, and we had discussions with them later on too. And with that number of riders, they preferred to keep the riders off the trail and on the existing roadways, not impact trail users and recreationalists. And that was something that came out of the committee. Also, in late June, the county engineer has planned a road paving project of West Soapers Creek, where they're going to be filling in potholes, and I'm not sure if it's full-on paving or not. We spoke with the county engineer, and he wasn't exactly clear on the dates because it's still out for bid, and they're trying to figure that out. We want to put the applicant on notice that those paving projects will not be suspended for any year. The board feels differently, obviously, but just wanted to put that out there too. And we're trying to figure out how to get compliance out of this event, and some key members of the special event committee felt that it was a good thing to recommend to the board that within 30 the event, if improvement happens, that we do a debrief with Chandler, and we go over what the conditions of the resolution were and compliance with those, and we flush out if there was non-compliance or areas where we need to work on, so that if this does go forward again for a second year, that we can hone in and make it the best event we can. So that I'll stop talking, and you have a draft resolution of approval, and I can try and answer any questions.
Okay. Everyone's got a question to share. Patty and Greg.
Yeah, I am significantly concerned about the bike riders coming through town that day in the afternoon. If it's after 3 o'clock, you don't have that bus lane open. Where in the heck are they going to ride? You're going to have all that traffic issues leaving town in the afternoon, and I just don't know how we're going to fit it all and come down Main Street trying to get, and then that's number one. Number two is crossing at Owl Creek. That is a dangerous intersection at Buttermilk and Owl Creek. That's going to have to be the highway patrol is going to have to be standing there. You're going to have the same thing on the flip side coming off of Prince Creek onto 133. They're going to all have to cross the highway. There's no signalized intersection there. They're going to have traffic control right there. And I'm assuming that when you say the next timing segment begins on Highway 133 to McClure Pass, that they're going to be timed all the way up from when they get onto Prince Creek, off of Prince Creek. That's a long section of highway along there. But, it comes down to rider safety in my mind. The traffic's already slowed down and congested, but it's traffic in and out of those traffic lanes in the afternoon with the bus lane. Buses are moving people past there at a pretty quick rate when everybody else is jammed up. And tempers are hot. And, I just am really concerned about riders coming through, because if they're leaving Vail in the morning, by the time they get here, we could really be on some peak Main Street traffic. And that's a huge public safety concern.
Yeah, I'll echo Patty's concern. I'm enthusiastic about events like this, and I'd love to see a bike ride like this. I'd like to know a little bit more about the participants. Is this something that's it's not a fun ride? I understand you've done Ride the Rockies and you've managed that in the past, so you can talk about the difference between this type of rider, if there is one. Are these going to be aggressive Tour de France wannabes who want to race every chance they get, and will they cluster up in pelotons, or will they be spread out? I think a lot of the problems we have with density we've talked about could possibly be solved if the 300 riders are spread out enough that it isn't a large cluster. The other thing I wanted to ask about was just the culture of the ride and race. Are they going to be accompanied by people who are painting signs on the roads, and the typical Tour de France sort of, even the tours here, they're painting stripes. There's a lot of fallout afterwards with striping and marking, graffiti and stuff like that. And sometimes I guess it's a good thing. Sometimes it's kind of obnoxious. Just wondering, is there a cultural identity to this group that you can share with us?
Rachel? Yeah, it strikes me, Patty, really nailed it, and that's one of the ones I was thinking of. But perhaps RAFTA should be included in some of these special event permits when they're talking about using Highway 82 in the future, because that's huge. And okay, thank you. I agree with what Patty was saying, and I think RAFTA should be included in special event permits that could interfere with their activities and operations. I was kind of sitting here thinking, well, they could maybe go through the West End and down Sneaky Lane and up, but then they're still going to have to get back on Highway 82 to go into the roundabout. And the roundabout, that time of day, it's beyond nuts. And, even the West End, if you're routing through the West End, you have people running every other stop sign to try to beat the traffic. I mean, it's just, there's as much traffic in the West End as there is on Main Street in the summer, and a lot of times. So that's very problematic, both for public safety as well as the bike rider safety, and I can just see some incredible frustration. And if I don't know where people, yes, I guess people would get a little more spread out, or they should get a little more spread out, but you don't know. I mean, that's just kind of counting on something that maybe everyone's going to stop for a water break and they'll be back packed up again before they go to the next spot. And I do continue to have the concerns about, how many support vehicles are there? If there's one woman riding, does that mean her husband is not part of the ride, will be driving the car with the extra 2 bikes to switch off and gears and things? And, how many cars will be following or preceding this? And then I am, very much questioning and wanting to hear about how this timing happens, because timing sounds like a race. And when they do the timing in some, they 10-second start, 10-second start, 10-second start. Well, that doesn't mean the third and fourth starters aren't trying to get up and pass the first 2 starters to have better time. So it kind of defaults into a bit of a race, because you have to pass people to maintain your own pace. And so then you could have, again, multiple people across the road. So it really starts to sound a lot like road closures exactly when people are coming home from work and rush hour traffic. So I'm really concerned about that. And that traffic's up and down 82. It's not just at the entrance.
Steve?
So questions I would have, with the riders starting in Avon, I presume they're going to really be spread out by the time they're entering Aspen. And I was just wondering if you have any feeling for how spread out they're going to be. How big are the groups of riders? There'll be groups of riders going along, and then there'll be a break, and then another group of riders. So based on former events you've been involved in, I'm wondering what is anticipated in terms of how long are they going to be spread out when they hit Aspen? Are they going to be spread out over a 4-hour period, or are they going to be bunched up within half an hour of each other? I noticed that it might include hand cyclists, which I presume they're going to be low to the ground, and I want to make sure that those would have flags on them, just so the motorists could see them better for safety. There was a recumbent bicycle on our county road the other day. We just about didn't see it because it's so low compared to the average bicyclist, and they did not have a flag sticking up. And to me, I thought, that's dangerous. They should have a flag up there to attract attention to them. Also, another question, I presume if they're obeying rules of the road, when they come to a stoplight, for instance, crossing Highway 82 at Owl Creek, they're going to have to push the pedestrian walk signal and wait there until they get the walk signal for pedestrians before crossing Highway 82. And likewise, crossing from Prince Creek into crossing 133, if that's a time section of the race, which I'm not sure exactly where that starts and ends, they're going to have to wait there at the stop sign until they can safely go across the road. So it's not like they're going to get there and just blow through the stop sign or the stoplight. If they're following the rules of the road and to be safe, they're going to have to come to a complete stop at
They're going to have traffic control.
Different places in order to do it safely. So I want to just clarify and kind of see in my mind what is the scene going to actually be like out there. If they're going to be blowing through stop signs and stoplights in order to try to win the timed race, that would create a dangerous situation in my estimation. So that's the kind of questions I'd want to have a response to.
Mike, can you put on the screen the event schedule as planned right now for the summer?
For the summer? That's a good idea, George. Laura can help you. There we go.
So, do I need to use the microphone here? This is our summer event schedule so far. The events that have already happened don't show up, but previously to this, we had the Grand Traverse ski race and a couple movie photo shoots. But basically, as far as bike events go, Independence Pass, Ride for the Pass will occur on May 20th, so coming up. Obviously, we can see the Mavic route application. Aspen Valley Marathon, though not a bike event, is a running event that's happened for the last, I think, 7 years now. They have asked for the 15th of July, that weekend. Backcountry Marathon happens in August. And then the Golden Leaf, obviously, is one that's been occurring for, I think, the last 25 years, and that one is in September. The other ones you see here, our special event website captures also fundraising events, and that's what the Wild Fest is. The Bash for the Buddies, I think almost all of us know which one that is, fundraiser. Art Crush is another fundraiser for the Aspen Art Museum being held at Buttermilk. But this actually is a comprehensive list of what we have permits applied for today. We are aware that there are 2 other bike events that would like to be permitted with Pickens County, but they have not made application to us yet. And they are bike events that have happened previously, and we have been in contact with them to say, get your permits in so we can get them reviewed, but they still have not applied yet.
Any idea on dates for those?
I don't know the dates on those yet.
Mike, do you know the Aspen Cycling Club? They usually have weekly rides And I forget if it's a Wednesday or Thursday.
Actually, I think it's a Tuesday, but they are permitted with us, and yeah, they go all over county roads.
Pretty much every week.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's the locals competition, basically.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks on that. The question I would ask as the applicant is writing these notes down is why do you need to come through Pickens County?
I'm sorry, the question was
why do you need to come through Pickens County?
Okay, very good. Am I on?
I don't know. Any other questions for Mike?
No. Okay.
One other concern I have is the paving project on West Hopes Creek Road is happening this summer. I don't know the timetable of that, and maybe we don't even know that, but I noticed, they might be riding through a total road paving project on West Silvers Creek Road, and they've been forewarned that there could be something, but that could be kind of an interesting situation over there.
Okay. No other questions at this point for Mike? Let the applicant make your presentation, respond to a lot of these concerns.
Excellent. Good morning, Chandler Smith, Event Director for Oat Root Rockies. Good to see all of you guys. This is becoming an annual occurrence. But I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys about this event. You do have a lot of questions and concerns, all very valid, things that we're sensitive to as well. So I did take notes here. I'll do my best to address them all. If I overlook something, please bring it back to my attention. I'll be happy to answer that. To just kind of go in an order that I think makes sense. First, I'd like to just kind of explain the difference between what I would consider a rec ride, a race, and then what we consider, and what this falls to is called a Gran Fondo, a European term for an event that is for recreational riders, and it's a timed event where it's you against the clock, not you against other cyclists. There are no team components, and to that end, there's not the behaviors like a peloton that Mike spoke to that you would see with the pro race that involves road closures, be it hard closures or rolling enclosures. So with that said, a rack ride, more like a Ride the Rockies, which we're all familiar with, and that is where my background has been for the last 10 years. A race would be more like the Pro Challenge that you all saw. We're proposing a Gran Fondo. What's unique in this, and it's kind of the first time it's been executed in North America, frankly, is there's several single-day Gran Fondos, but this is the first time we've looked to stage 7 days together consecutively to make a week-long experience. When we speak of road versus gravel, a very fair question and a good question. There's a new trend in cycling now where road riding, gravel roads, it's called gravel grinders, is kind of a new trend in the industry. And there's manufacturers building bicycles and tires built around that, kind of a hybrid between a mountain bike and a road bike. This event is sponsored by Mavic, hence the Mavic Oat Root Rockies name. And Mavic just released a new wheel that is geared for gravel riding. So the charge to us was actually to put together a route that incorporated a minimum of 20% gravel roads. Hence why we're taking roads like Trough Road in Eagle and Gunnison County, or I'm sorry, Grand County, as an example, out of Boulder County, Sunshine Canyon, Magnolia Road, and that is why we look to use the backcountry roads here in Pickens County, and largely because I'm also aware of the dynamics and the likes of Woody Creek and the congestions on those county roads that are often stressed by bicycle events like a Ride the Rockies in years past. So that addresses the gravel piece. Great question, why Pickens County? But I think we all know the answer to that. Pickens County, you guys are home to arguably some of the most beautiful, pristine, country here in the state, arguably in the U.S., but more so from a cycling standpoint, you're home to some of the most beautiful cycling regions in our state. And you happen to be sitting at the base of what is arguably one of what we often refer in the industry as a queen mountain to climb. And it's a highlight. So that's why you see the pro race always looking to incorporate Independence Pass. You're a community that supports recreation, supports an active lifestyle, and so that's why you guys were certainly on our radar. Independence Pass is one of the highlights of this week, and to go up and over Independence Pass, obviously we have to come through Pickens County, through the city of Aspen. The initial host community, and to answer your question, in this event, all people do bed in hotels, so the economic impact is there. It's not camping like you see with Ride the Rockies. But the initial proposal actually was for Aspen to be a host of this event, and it was suggested that it wasn't good timing for that, but actually that snow mass, this could be right up their alley to host. So a vetting process happened long ago. Towns were vetted. Colorado State Patrol was pulled into this mix over 2 years ago, really. Towns were on board over a year and a half ago, but then it's obviously that connecting the dots. And we're covering over 500 miles, several counties, several cities, several municipalities. This is the one missing link we have to make this a reality. So to some degree, we're at your mercy, but to also know that we're also very amendable to make this happen. I'll talk about the timing here in a second, but I'll just share with you, when we came into the initial special event review, we were very open to the idea of taking the bicycle trails to minimize congestion on your streets. And to us, that was, to me, kind of a logical answer, because when we start looking at, and we'll get into the fine details of this, but the actual nature of the cyclists and how spread out they're going to be, honestly, you guys won't see this as an event. It'll look like riders just coming through your town, because you're looking at, and I'll just go ahead and dive into the numbers. Right now we have 350 participants. 75% of that group is coming over from Europe. So when we talk about the culture of these participants, they're a very affluent demographic. They're riders that love the sport, but they're accustomed to the European Grand Fondo experience, which is just that personal best against the clock piece. And so this opportunity to come to North America, see a new part of the world, and have that unique European experience is what was attractive to those individuals. That being said, we're covering over 100 miles that day, leaving Avon. Cyclists at the point have to climb up and over Battle Mountain, Tennessee Pass, Mount Elbert Forbay, and Independence Pass. We have very detailed and significant what we call cue sheets that have algorithms that show the slowest rider and the fastest rider. And it's proposed that, over kind of a 5-hour time slot here in Aspen proper, and then in Pickens County, if you were to take a snapshot of just Aspen, you may have at most 15 to 20 cyclists in your town at that point, and others are spread out over the rest of the route. So the impact is very minimal. So that's why I think they went with the direction of the roads. At that same point, I guess I would just like to continue to put it out there that we are open to the bicycle trail. We're also open to amending the timing sections, which will be a good segue into that. If you feel like it's not appropriate in Pickens County, but I would make a big push to allow at least the timing section of McClure. That being said, what the time looks like, it's not so much a time trial, so I'd like to kind of clear that picture. What it is, it's no different really than like you'd see in a marathon or running race, where participants have a chip on their bicycle, and it is a wire less thick than this wire in front of me that is taped across the shoulder lane where the cyclist will be riding, because it is rules of the road, single file, no more than 2 abreast without impeding traffic. And they just naturally, when they go across that wire, that's when the timing is triggered. So it's not an organized release every 10 seconds per se.
Thank you.
And so they go across that wire, and then they're pushing it, but they have to push it and respect rules of the road at the same time. And then there'll be a wire at the conclusion of that, and then it's just all captured electronically, and then their timing sections throughout the day are added up, and that's how they get scored for that particular stage. So it's a very minimal impact, not a lot of assets at all on the road. You frankly wouldn't even know any different that it's going on. So that's the timing side to the event. When we look to do timing, and this is an important piece to this conversation, when you look to do timing, you want to make sure that cyclists have right of way. And to have right-of-way, if they're making any, say, left-hand turns, or you would be putting them through a traffic intersection with lights or any stop signs, it would require them to break the law to not actually stop and keep going. So we've been very strategic in where we've placed these timing sections. Most of them are kind of out in the countryside where there are not a lot of traffic turns. There's no racing in any municipality proper. And those sections are almost all to where no traffic rules would have to be broken to give them right away. However, if there is a left turn or an intersection, then yes, traffic control is mandated, and we've hired those resources through City Police, County SO, and Colorado State Patrol. To Mike's point, the event is supported by 6 motor troopers. We also have 6 what we're just calling moto security folks on motorbikes, so the 12 motos total, and then we have 10 support vehicles. So we're really only looking at 22 support vehicles, again stretched out over 100 miles supporting all of our athletes. When we talk about the total population and we say 150 support, a lot of those roles also fall to the race village and the destination and the start town, so it's not all out on the route itself. So specific to Pickens County, obviously a time section climbing Independence Pass is really of great intrigue of ours, and Lake County is on board of that. From an emergency standpoint, we have hired additional resources and an ambulance on the Lake County side to service Independence Pass on the climb. We've been working very closely with the district director, I believe he is here, maybe still is. I don't see him now, but Gabe Muthing was here earlier. We've contracted the services of Gabe to have an ambulance on the Pickens side on the descent. And then in Snowmass Village, we're working with Deputy Chief Issel of Snowmass Wildcat Fire District to hire additional resources to help service the Divide area that's a little bit more remote. From a standpoint of being held, the cyclist kind of accountability and that mindset of rules of the road and racing, what's unique about this format is there's mandated briefings every night at 6 o'clock. This gives us an opportunity with visuals to show the cyclist the route, to talk through all sections of concern, and to reiterate the rules of that stage. And so it is very top priority for us to reiterate the rules of the road, especially the sensitivities here in Pickens County and Aspen proper, that night prior. We've also taken the measure, which is kind of unprecedented, of setting up a checkpoint on the top of Independence Pass. So after they cross and climb the Independence Pass, timing stopped, they get refreshments, and then they're on their descent. They actually have to come through a medical checkpoint. At that point, they'll be reminded of rules of the road, single file, concerns on the descent coming down Pickens County through the town of Aspen, and then obviously on the climb up. And to us, that's a really great opportunity to, one, just check their physical well-being. Mentally, are they there? Physically, are they there? And then to reiterate those rules. Moto security, law enforcement, all support officials also have the right to cite cyclists, and for that matter, remove cyclists from the event altogether should they break any of these rules. I will share this. This event's important to the parent company called OC Sport out of Switzerland. They know that this event and how it goes this year makes or breaks their opportunity to have this in the future, not only here in Colorado, but in North America. And I did go over to Europe. I saw their event there. I was a part of their French Alps experience, and I'll just say that the cycling population is very respectful. They're a mature group. They're not a big partying group. There's not wild and crazy beer gardens tied to this event. They ride, they go to restaurants, they have a nice meal, they go back to their hotels, they sleep, they get up, and they do this all over again.
That was the French you said do that?
That's right.
Just to clarify, we're talking the
It
French.
was the French, yes.
The new French to me.
So I believe I addressed the fact cyclists are going to be spread out. We're only looking at 350 athletes. That's 1/6 the population of a Ride the Rockies.
Yes, didn't the application say 500 though?
That's combined with
with
volunteers
Okay,
and
you.
support staff, correct. And I can share, I looked today at the numbers and it's 350, and I don't see that amount changing at this point now because we're so close to the event. Again, over the course of the period, it's not an exact science, but we do have a great algorithm because that's what we use to also put people in our fixed post, be it county SO or city police department. But truly, we're not looking at large contingencies and groupings of cyclists coming through your town. At that point, the field is blown up. Maybe not the right choice of words, but they're very spread out over several miles of the road. So I do believe the impact is going to be minimal. I think this is why it was also, received well by county SO. We're not requesting any fixed posts by the county, and we've made it clear that we're happy to work with Aspen PD, really at their discretion to identify where they want a law enforcement post and where they would like our volunteer road marshal posts, and we are budgeted to pay for any of those extra duty officer hours. And then, as I already shared, we've contracted services of both Aspen Ambulance District as well as the Town of Snowmassville GMS group. In terms of notifications and just the general public, we are sensitive, certainly, that it is the beginning of the 4th of July weekend. I do believe, though, to Mike's point, a Wednesday versus, say, a Friday or a Saturday of that weekend is definitely a better thing. We are also aware that we're coming in around rush hour kind of period of time. And so to that end, again, we're kind of flexible on what that route looks like to where you think it'll be less stressful and inconvenience to your community. In terms of notifying the general public, it's in our queue, and we're committed to notifying residents both by advisories in the paper and the local papers. We will run PSAs. We'll work closely with the county and state to have the variable message boards up to notify people that events in progress. We also travel with the orange diamond signs that speak to an events in progress, and we'll put those out as well. Commissioner Poshman, is that how you pronounce that? Poshman. Your question, fair, about kind of the graffiti and the chalk art. This is not that kind of group. Our signs will be ones that can be removed, just adhered and removed, no chalk art. Any major hazard, I would leave that up to you guys if that could be sprayed with orange environmental friendly spray chalk, but there's other means of notifying those kind of hazards on the road. And there's really not a support personnel that you see, private support personnel that you see like on Ride the Rockies, the big caravan of the spouses and the kids. With this group traveling over from Europe, most of them are coming over as individuals, so you're not going to see a bunch of RVs on the road and a bunch of congestion at the aid stations, etc. We also have committed to utilizing, I believe it's a service through Pitkin County, and I'll lean on Mike to kind of guide me through this process, but it's my understanding we can pull addresses for those impacted or adjacent to the route, and we can do mail notifications, and we are budgeted and prepared to do that as well. Just from a technical standpoint, if this is approved by you all, the next steps on this is we have a technical coordinator, a colleague of mine, Dave Christian. He's overseen Boulder Ironman for the last 10 years. He is our technical coordinator, and he is right now in the midst of putting together what we call our technical event guide. In our technical event guide is a cue sheet, which is this algorithm of cyclists and how fast they'll travel, how slow they'll travel, when they'll pass through various towns, and that's how we identify our fixed posts for law enforcement. It'll include an IAP or an EAP, an incident action plan or emergency action plan. It'll include a communications plan as well as a command structure plan and contingency plans for the likes of inclement weather, etc. These plans are all vetted, and it's a very communal process with fire, EMS, police, and county sheriff. So these drafts are being submitted right now. They're being vetted. The final documentation will be put together June 1st, and it'll be in everybody's hand, and then that becomes kind of our guide to move our participants across the state those 7 days. And then the last piece I guess I'll address, and I believe I covered my notes, and I'll turn it back to you guys, but there was questions about the paving project. As you can imagine, and this is why I'm only 20 years old and I look like I'm 40 with all of this gray hair. But the reason I have the gray hair is these events, there are those stresses. When you're trying to move this many people across the state and you're working with this many counties and municipalities, there's a lot of permitting, there's a lot of politics, and that's the nature of the game. And there's a lot of road construction that you encounter over 500 miles. And sometimes those are planned for, sometimes we can have stipulations put into the project engineers' notes where they'll work with us, and then sometimes they arise and we just have to adjust and deal with them on the fly. What we're committed to is staying in close touch with Roads and Bridge and talk about paving projects. We also know we're going through a region of potential cattle drives, and so we'll want to work closely with the ranchers, as that certainly reared its head as well in the past. So we're aware of that. It's just the nature of the game, and we adjust on the fly. And then last, I'll just close with, these events, I know you guys are taxed a lot. I know the requests come a lot in large in part because you live in such a beautiful place, and it's a great place to visit and recreate. And we feel that. We feel it in all the counties. The number of requests are significant. And so over the years, you guys have been great working with us on Ride the Rockies, and I thank you for that. I would like to believe I'm in this business because I try to do things professionally, ethically, and timely. And, we did vet this out early on. We had our permit application in, I believe, the first of the year. And I think we've been very responsive to the stipulations and the concerns that were brought forth in the original event review. And I think we've met those stipulations. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you for that. I think you answered a lot of the questions. I'm going to start with some route concerns, and I'm going to echo my fellow commissioners. Coming down Main Street, rush hour, going through the roundabout, I think is a disaster waiting to happen if it's just one rider or 5 riders. It's just, I don't ride through the roundabout, and I ride in and out of town often. So I would like to, if we decide to go forward with this, I would like to look at some other routes as they're coming down off of Independence Pass to either hop onto the Rio Grande Trail to Cemetery Lane, going up Cemetery Lane, and you circumvent the golf course. You can get on the golf course trail, and then you could cross at the light at Owl Creek in Buttermilk. That would be one option. The other option would be on the other side of town, going through onto Hopkins, crossing a bridge, again going over and then under the underpass, over to the golf course, and again hooking up to Owl Creek, but avoiding Main Street and avoiding the roundabout. I think are critical, and I think that route could probably work, especially if riders are spread out. And I think they'll be much more spread out this first day than the second day, frankly.
Correct. Because
of the length. I have some real concerns in terms of the time, the timing sections. You've got a few. You just have 2 here noted: East Soapers Creek to West Soapers Creek. I would not have a problem going up East Soapers Creek to the top. But going down East Soapers Creek, there's narrow sections, there are blind corners, there is traffic on that road, so I would just say uphill only. You could also, same with West Soapers Creek to Prince Creek. Prince Creek is pretty gnarly going down. I would just have timing sections on the uphill, so that solves some of the dangers in terms of speeds and corners. So it could be West Soapers Creek to the, I'm sorry, you have it to the Prince Creek Divide, so you had that just on the uphill section anyway.
Yeah.
Highway 133 to McClure Pass, that highway is probably scarier for me to ride than Highway 82, frankly. I would say if there was going to be a timing section, I would, again, perhaps start at Redstone and just go to the top of McClure's. You have a better sight of line there and a better shoulder.
It's not as green.
Those are my initial questions and concerns. Mike, can you tell us, just off the top of your head, some of those potential other rides that may be coming through? Are they like a ride to Rockies, or?
We haven't had any applications from the usual suspects: Ride the Rockies, Bicycle Tours of Colorado, and I forget the third one. Which one?
Komen.
Komen has not submitted their application, so we don't have a permit from them.
All right. I'm just curious if there's going to be any other large rides that may be impacting the county.
And I can share, Ride the Rockies is Southwest corridor this year, and I believe Bicycle Tour Colorado as well.
And then do you anticipate that if this is a first annual, that you would be moving this around the state? You wouldn't be coming back every year to Pickens County?
As much as you'd like to.
Yeah, no.
Share the wealth.
Glory.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very much a similar format proposed like a Ride the Rockies, where you travel it around the state. So it would not be very unlikely it would be consecutive years. I will say that the host communities that are on board for this inaugural year, they have, I don't think anything's super binding on this, but they have agreed to and expressed desire to host 3 times out of the next 5 years.
All right, that's me for now. Patty, and then Steve.
George, thank you for the issues about coming down Main Street. You'd have to have somebody at every single intersection, because people creep out, and I'd hate to see a bike coming down the road and people creeping out looking to get into that traffic. It gets to be a real snaggle coming through town. So if we could help maybe support this with City of Aspen, who would have concerns, but I think trying to get people off Highway 82 coming through town at rush hour and not going through the roundabout would be great. As for the intersection crossing at Owl Creek, will you have somebody posted there then, as you will at 133 in Prince Creek?
Yes, and I didn't want to get too deep into those weeds, but all those posts are identified in that one as to be held by...
Because that's critical, as is in one on 133.
Correct. Colorado State Patrol for both those left hands.
That's great. And you talk about these new gravel street road bike tires. Is everybody going to be using those, or is it just hopeful that the sponsor will have everybody using those?
Obviously, the desire is for the sponsor to be able to push those. It's not required, but I'll share with you, all of these roads have been vetted, and they'll be fine.
People know they're going to maybe not be riding, because we get a lot of issues about just gravel on the paved roads. We hate people riding on gravel roads.
Yeah, I understand.
The other thing, and I understand this graphing you have, or what did you call it, where people will leave riders at this level will be at this point. But if you're going to have them stationed for rest and relaxation at the top of the pass before they head down, they might be coming downhill a lot at the same time. So I think we really need to look at the numbers coming through town, regardless of where they come through downtown. It's just really a public safety issue. You talked about contacting, working with the Aspen Ambulance District, which, by the way, we're also the board for the Ambulance District, and with Basalt, Snowmass Wildcat. What about Basalt, Amby, and Carbondale? Because you'd be going through both of those jurisdictions also. Have you talked with them?
Yes. So Carbondale technically falls to Garfield County, I believe, correct?
Yeah, it's in Garfield. Yeah. Well, part of it, kind of, it's a Pickens County.
Garfield County has already approved the permit, but yes, all of their emergency response, and Basalt was one of the stipulations.
Carbondale is part in Pickens, part in Garfield, and they have an ambulance district.
Correct.
As does Basalt, which is kind of the Mid-Valley. So they both have ambulance districts, so we need to have ambulance covered the whole way. Other than that, I just have to see kind of how the rest of this is vetted out. But I want you to know, Chandler, that you did an amazing job presenting this, and you do it very professionally and timely and ethically, and I really appreciate the information you provided was very clear and really, I think, covered a lot of ground, not just the 500 miles you're actually traveling, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, too.
Steve?
Yeah, just a couple more points. And George, you made a lot of my same idea to keep them off Highway 82 through town, and perhaps there's a way they could go down through the power plant road and up to Cemetery Lane that way, if they're going on the back streets off of Main Street. I was wondering when at 6:30 in the morning when people start riding, is it a staggered? They come in, they're eating breakfast, they come to the starting point spread out already over an hour, or do they all get there at 6:30 and they're all ready to all leave at the same time?
Great question. So the start stage here actually looks a little bit different than the other stage starts. at the request of most of the cities we're in, they've actually have asked us with State Patrol to do a motorcade escort of the entire population to get them out of town proper, right? And the impact, yes, at that point, it's they'll take up the road to do so, but it's a short impact, and then they're out of town. Here for this particular stage, because of the nature of Divide Road, it'll be a mass start, but there's no timing in that section, so people will casually roll off of the race village, Wood Creek, make their way over to Divide, maneuver a couple more of the tricky turns there on the dirt road, and then start their ride. So that by itself will kind of spread people out. So that's, and we purposely, it's a big day. They're going over McClure, then Kebler Road over to Mount Crested Butte with a mountaintop finish. So that by itself pushed us to do an early start, but we also recognize, by starting at 6:30 that day, we can be out of your all's hair pretty quick. And so I do think the impact on those roads when we're looking at, Snowmass Creek,
that's what I was thinking of. Going down the Divide Road and then Snowmass Creek Road is going to be a big bunch of bicycles really close together.
Yeah.
And then they're all going to be gone through there pretty quickly.
Correct.
But it'll be, if they all start at the same time, it's going to be real busy there for...
It will be busy
a little bit of time on the county roads. So.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, then during the timed portions... is there a system that the riders know how they are doing in relationship to the other riders? Like real-time information, like they do in a cross-country ski race?
Sure.
Where they know, they're not racing head-to-head. It's a timed race, but they can get information on where they are in relation to the others.
Yeah, and we don't do that for that reason, because we're not trying to promote me against you kind of environment. It's just you doing your personal best on your time. And so they don't see the results until the end of that day at that nightly briefing that I spoke about at 6 o'clock.
Okay. I think that would make it safer if they were getting real-time information and they want to... There's a guy from Switzerland who wants to beat that guy from France who's
exactly.
They might take unnecessary risks in that case.
Another way too to look at the Gran Fondo, and I know timing is a point of contingency and gets people hung up, and it's easily referenced then as a race, and people start thinking pelotons. But the other part to this Gran Fondo and this European experience is just really that it's the treatment these cyclists are getting on and off the bike to where they feel somewhat like a pro. So they finish the ride, they have a massage that they don't have to pay for. It's part of the package. They have great support on the route. They do have neutral support. So if they blow a tire, then a tire can be fixed for them on the route. Obviously, only off on the shoulder where that allows. So it's that kind of higher level support that you would see that a pro would get that really sells this experience.
Okay.
I want to piggyback off of one of Steve's questions or concerns. The Thursday 6:30 start. I would like to see that spread out because you're leaving Snowmass Village on Divide Road. You pretty much it's all downhill until you get to the junction of Snowmass and Capitol Creek. So I can't see that group being broken up at all. It's going to be hundreds of bicyclists riding through that area. And there is traffic on a weekday morning, workers, construction going on. So I would like to see that spread out over an hour and a half, because otherwise it's going to be like one huge peloton.
And that's certainly doable, a stage start on that, where we, do you have a desired amount, if releasing 50 at a time, 25 at a time?
Yeah. Okay. Rachel.
I would echo Patty's comments certainly about your professionalism, and appreciate your answering a lot of questions. I'm not a bicycle enthusiast in that classic sense, a little bit to City Market and back home, but that's about it.
Do you time yourself?
No.
I don't even go that far to bike. So
I do agree with having a marshal at the Buttermilk light, regardless of whatever the route is that gets us there. If the Rio Grande Trail is something that I think there will be some back and forth with the city about that. But there would have to be some warning signs to the pedestrians, coming and going. So at whatever point you're kind of getting off the trail, letting people know they may be, advancing with riders, and then wherever you're getting on, because there are just people walking dogs on long leashes and babies in carriages, and that just has to be very clear. And so that's the type of thing that your prep work on that night before is going to have to really point out. We've deliberately kept a lot of people off the Rio Grande Trail. And I agree with that as well, because I think that no matter what you would tell folks, they'd get down to Highway 82 and see the traffic backed up to the Hotel Jerome and decide to ride to the right and in between the cars to get to the end. Otherwise, it's 15 minutes of sitting there in diesel fumes. Mm-hmm. And what European bike rider is going to want to do that? Know those guys well enough to know they'd be taking that center lane between the cars or whatever, getting into the bus lane. And we just really can't have that. You mentioned hazard marking, and because a lot of this is Highway 82, is CDOT going to be doing the orange fluorescent marking of hazards for you?
So traditionally not. So the State Patrol and CDOT permit is one and the same. So it is vetted through CDOT. CDOT's obviously working closely with us on this event. They don't do the markings traditionally. That's left open to the event staff.
Okay.
I think where we've got, and I know Ride the Rockies is changing even its culture, where we kind of stray from that in the past is often you also, in addition to markings of hazards, you get encouraging slogans and sayings on the road, and then those are, what are there, and a little bit more, they're just not necessary, right? And so we've gotten away from that. I know Ride the Rockies is getting away from that. We have no intentions of doing that. So we're just talking like a major pothole would be marked with orange spray, but that's an advanced crew that marks it on our staff.
I just want to make sure somebody is, because I do the pass a lot once it's open for business down in Denver, and there's always some new things every other week on that road. It's older. We've been fortunate that they've repaved it a lot for the Pro Challenge, and we got some real improvements there. Right. But little things open up and holes and water and after
rocks.
And no one was really going to get a look at it until Memorial Day weekend.
Correct.
So that's going to be a pretty quick turnaround to take that hard look. And so then we get onto county roads. If you're anticipating any pothole or marking on county roads, would that be done in conjunction with our roads and bridge department, or compensate for any time that they might spend going out and marking those? Because nobody knows those roads better than GR and the crew.
George and Steve.
Yeah, and George and Steve, but those ones in particular. But I think it'd be really, I don't want there to be any sort of liability. I understand you're insuring us coming back onto the county because, a culvert replacement has left a jarring dip or something like that, or an edge. So I think perhaps we should have something in there that if we have to have road and bridge marking hazards, that there should be some compensation for their time. But I don't want any bike riders getting hurt. I just know how easy that can be, especially if you're really fatigued towards the end of the day or you're hitting some evening light. Let's see. Are you going to have any race monitors riding with the group? Is there, that you mentioned the guys on the motorcycles.
Yeah, security moto.
But how will, with this thing getting spread out so much, if people are riding 4 abreast instead of 2 abreast?
Yeah, and that's just tried and true measures that have happened over the years. So with 6 motor troopers, State Patrol, I mean, these guys and gals are very seasoned in this. And so their job is to marshal the entire event. They have kind of their own routine on how they have groups up in the lead pack and in the tail pack, and every kind of section's covered. And they're constantly, that is their job, is to, one, bring awareness to it for motors from a visibility standpoint. But then 2, they're always coaching and reminding people to ride
rules of the road.
Rules of the road, single file, absolutely.
Okay,
our road marshals echo that same message as well.
And I'd imagine that when people sign up, pay for the event, sign releases, they are committing to pay attention, Colorado roads are the rules.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned mobile highway sign information.
Correct.
Will you, I think it's going to be important to have one at the base of Highway 82 for people who are going in towards Denver or Leadville, so that they know they will be encountering bicycles coming down Highway 82. We just need something over there on the east end of town, or as you're getting closer to that, to let people know bicyclers, bike event, something like that. That's just going to be critical, because just driving a car back, you see people way over the center line regularly going up there, and we've been fighting the issue, but we often have illegal semi-trucks going over there as well. So definitely need something like that to let people know. And then in terms of your broader public information, I just, and this is for the board, maybe for Pat Bingham or something like that, I think we should be able to try to get it out on our Pick and Alert before the event, things like that. Reach a lot more people like that on the county's Facebook page, perhaps. But, a lot of people only read the paper online anymore. They don't really come into town. They don't really pick up and see an ad. And, by the time you get to 4th of July week, you have so many real estate ads and jewelry shop ads that you'll be lucky to be on the bottom, the corner, on the right-hand side of page 17. I'm not sure people catch it. And so I think that you should be doing, as well as print ads, some of the online ads that come across as a banner ad. And again, it has to be the banner, because otherwise it's the bottom of the page, and people don't necessarily see that in the online edition. So that is one of the single best ways, and it's actually very affordable to have some frequency of ads on the online editions.
Okay. Happy to.
And I think those were all of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, she was talking about banner ads on social media. I was thinking about Main Street banner. You've got so much traffic leaving town. Everybody reads the Main Street banners. Don't know if you can get space, but is that ever part of the program?
It's only for
Ride the Rockies?
nonprofits.
It's only for nonprofits?
The city.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing was Pick and Alert. With your experience in Ride the Rockies and with the Haute route in Europe, do they really have the ability to monitor, if you get a cluster, can they monitor that and break it up? And do they regularly tell riders, okay, let's have, some of you have to slow down or wait 5 minutes just to break up packs? Does that happen?
That does happen, and that's a key role of State Patrol, but then, again, those motor security folks, because with a motor bike, you're able to maneuver closer to them and actually verbally give commands.
To that. They're
very, very much so,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. And again, I'll just reiterate, with this group coming over here, people are very aware. I mean, there's a heightened awareness around this event, absolutely. And people are very aware that as an entire event body, that they need to adhere to the rules. They need to treat these communities with respect if they want this to come back. And so I fully understand your all's concern, but I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised by the behaviors of the cyclists.
So one of the things I'm hearing consistently is that we don't want to have the riders going down Main Street through the roundabout. So Mike, that then is the message that has to go back to the city, and then it's up to them to try to determine what route they would like to do, or we can suggest a route which would have the least impact.
You're right. It's got to go back to the city. And as you said it, George, I was trying to think in my head what a best route would be, but I'm really not qualified to offer that to the board, and I would have to lean on the city to make sure that they were okay with the route. We heard loud and clear they didn't want to be on the trails, so that leads me to think that going off Bleecker Street somewhere and then through the West End and then down a power plant up Cross Cemetery and then on the trail would probably be the best way to do it.
I agree. It's just sometimes the people that live over there don't like people coming to, so that could be a greater obstacle than.
Yeah.
The other option, I was just trying to work through it. Again, coming off the pass, shooting up onto Durant Street and getting onto going across the Holden Bridge.
Then there's overpasses above.
Which is kind of interesting for riders. Then you go the overpass by the Prince of Peace Chapel, and then the underpass by the Moore property puts you on a very short section of the golf course to the intersection of Buttermilk and Owl Creek.
We talked about that one at the special event committee. We were thinking that one was the good route too, and City Park said that was not preferable to them. But we can broach it with them again.
Well, there's going to have to be some sort of compromise. If at least what I'm hearing from the board that Main Street and the roundabout is unacceptable. So.
Yeah. Right. Just another alternative to that would be across the Marolt property, the bridges, and then up Maroon Creek for a little bit to the Arc and across the bridge to Buttermilk, because that would get you all the way down to Owl Creek and on the right side of the road for Owl Creek.
That's a good point.
That's
right. Yeah, that's a good point.
If you're riding against traffic.
So
for a small section of Maroon Creek, yes. But there already is a variable sign there in place, so that's kind of helpful.
And the other thing, though, too, is I understand city parks and their input, but maybe that's when City Parks needs to bump it up to the city council level, just like you, Mike, so wisely brought this to us. We kind of have a thing that if there's an issue and staff feels it's a significant enough, staff knows to bring it to the BOCC, and we truly appreciate that.
Steve?
All that said, all our concerns are out there. I'm very much in favor of this coming here. We are a bicycling town. We welcome lots of things, and we try to accommodate events as much as we can, realizing that there are, we have to make adjustments to make things work sometimes. But
thank you, Commissioner.
I hope the event can be pulled off and that you can come here and enjoy our hospitality here. And
So, Mike, what are you looking for? Are you looking for sort of thumbs up, a direction, or what's?
You have before you a resolution approving this, and it would be your decision to make a motion on this. But maybe good, George, I was trying to jot down all the different conditions that all the different commissioners had said, and I think, unless a commissioner wants to try and summarize what for the conditions that would be changed on the proposed permit, or I could try and do it too.
Well, if you've jotted them down,
I think I have.
But Rachel, give us something.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but perhaps giving Mike a chance to write those all up and then have a small section of next Tuesday's meeting as a special meeting that we could approve it then and see them in writing.
Well, I think we need, what it really hinges on is the city, and I don't know when.
Well, that's why
we'll have to write something into anything that says dependent upon, and at that time it might have to come back to us for a reconsideration. I just think that's a critical part of this for public safety, for both the riders and the general public.
So, given no suggestion, what's your timing needs, Mike?
This I could bring forward with the conditions we talked about to the next commissioner meeting.
24th.
24th of May. However, what the wild card is I don't know what the city's availability to convene their key people, namely their APD and their Parks and Trails people, to vet out an alternative route. And that also means that we need to get Chandler in the conversation too, to make sure that it's acceptable where we would be putting these people to. I don't know how that fits into your ride schedule. So that is going to take a little bit of time.
So, but are you comfortable with coming back with sort of the consolidation of all of our suggestions next Tuesday?
No, I was thinking, so next Tuesday would be the work session then?
Yeah, I mean, just as a work session.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see, just sort of try to keep this moving along.
Yeah, well, I could try and do that, and and since it's a work session.
Just know your progress.
Yeah, we'll give you a progress update, and then if we need to, we could kick it further out to the next work session then too.
Because if we need a formal resolution, it has to be at a regular public meeting.
That's true too, yes.
So the next one would be 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So if I just may interject here, and I fully respect the processes and the calendar, I would just say to keep in mind, I mean, this event at this point now, we are less than, what I want to say 50,
6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks away, keeping in mind a large number of these participants, have booked airfare. And so if, which I hope this is not the result, but for whatever reason, if this were declined, then we're talking about a significant jolt in what has been planned to the point of probably canceling the event. And out of respect of all these individuals who have paid money to be over here, and it's the nature of the process, right? But I would say that the sooner we can have a resolution, the better, because my hope is we all come to a compromise here. I truly think we're talking about something that is very manageable. But in the worst case scenario, if it weren't, then I think it's in our best interest to be very diligent and figuring out our next plan.
Thank you for that. Maybe I could just sort of get a nod of heads in terms of if there's a general support for this tour, with the caveat that we want to make sure all of our concerns are addressed.
Yeah, and I'm fine working towards that, and absolutely.
So is there a general support?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying. If we needed to add a special meeting to Tuesday of next week, it would be sooner. And it may be that it has to be written that it's dependent upon the city approval of a different route, but we should at least be able to reincorporate the conditions that we have. And that would give you something a lot sooner.
Yeah, we could call a special meeting, posted ahead of time for next Tuesday. That's not.
I don't know if Mike won't have.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think he'll have the firm resolution for us. I think planning on the 24th of May to hear this again will give everybody time. We can always discuss it as part of our work session, right?
Well,
you could discuss, but you wouldn't be able to take any formal action.
I don't know if Mike will be able to get back to us with anything more concrete than he has now by next Tuesday.
Well, I don't know that anything required. I mean, it was just more writing up what we've already just said.
The city of Aspen approving.
Well, that's
the
what I'm
change.
saying. We could make it dependent. It's a conditional approval based on them.
Right.
But I'll say right here, you kind of put it on us to say, well, look, all these people have to cancel their airfare and the whole event across Colorado if Pitkin County doesn't do this. And if we approve something on Tuesday, dependent on the city, then it's going to be, it'll all be canceled if the city doesn't do that. And so I'd rather get it done on Tuesday of next week.
That was honest, Rachel.
Thank you.
And let me back up on that. I didn't mean to put that on you guys. It's the nature of the cycle.
I
mean, our permit was in January, and now we're 5 months later having these conversations. But it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I know.
So I see that now. So if we can put it on for a special meeting for Tuesday, we have plenty of time to notice. And Mike, so much for your weekend. You're going to be working on this.
Well, this isn't very difficult. It's just writing up the notes that we've already talked about, and maybe just one or two little things Mike have missed or we might have added. I don't think it's brain surgery.
We have an existing resolution. It's just modifying
that.
It's
just modifying.
We can also present that. We'll present that resolution at the meeting. It probably will not be part of your packets.
Yeah. That's fine. It doesn't have to be in by Friday. That would be the important.
As long as we've got it noticed legally properly.
Steve?
I've been thinking of the worst case scenario that you can't go through Aspen at all, and then what do you do? Now I've come up with a potential solution.
Well,
no, it would be to go to Leadville and then go around Turquoise Lake and over Hagerman Pass and down the frying pan back into the Roaring Fork. So it's
that would be testing
adding more gravel
bicycles.
and dirt road to the route.
Yeah.
So we need a motion to continue this? Is that what we need to?
If I just may ask before that, this meeting, I do reside in Denver, and as much as I enjoy the drives over, we have a big task ahead of ourselves just on the other logistics in towns. Is it necessary that I'm present at this?
You can watch us on TV or what is the other?
Okay, so you don't need me physically at that meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
We can always call you. Just make sure Mikey knows how to call you.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so to Patty's question, do we need a motion to continue for this?
So I'll make a motion to continue a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners approving the Mavic Haute Route special event. We're going to schedule this for reading on Tuesday, what is next Tuesday?
May 16th.
In a special meeting.
Okay, any further discussion?
See none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Chandler, very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Okay, let's see. Open discussion. Do we have anything, John?
Going here. Thank you, Laura. So just a couple of things. We do have the name of the contractor that you've been asking for. It's Matt Holt of Mountaineer Tree Service out of Grand Junction. We can email that out. We had actually had that in an information packet back in March, but I think it may have been buried in the
I think we need to discuss at some point sending a letter to this gentleman as to the rules and regulations.
Comment to the Better Business Bureau.
Yeah. Yeah, about not following local rules and regulations.
Not getting a permit.
Mm-hmm. So maybe
Absolutely.
somebody can draft something up for us to review, consider. I think we made such a point of that during the whole discussion that we need to show people that we follow through on the conditions.
And then
Thank you very
yep,
much.
Yep, absolutely. And so the next item is a little bit difficult to approach. There's a May 15th deadline for comments on EPA rulemaking, and it's the result of an executive order. Rachel, I know you're familiar with this right now, but it's really seeking comments on all existing regulations, and ones that could be eliminated or are
Modified.
redundant or modified or what have you. There has been some discussion about communities weighing in on enforcing existing regulations, improving air water quality. It is so broad, I don't even know how to exactly talk to you about it, and comments are due before your next meeting. What we'd like to suggest is having staff, just based on past board policy direction and interests that have been established, to go ahead and develop some comments to the best of our ability, with the ability to run them by the chair and get them submitted before May 15th. And I wish I could tell you what they are, but like I said, this is broad. I think we'd put Kara and ComDev and seek advice from our attorney's office on that.
I agree with that. I would just like one comment in there to include something about this what's happening. The fact that they are stripping EPA of just general rules and regulations that have been established. Kind of the manner in which the executive order, something to that. See what I mean? I mean, it's broader, but I think it's a broader issue on top of each individual regulation, just coming in and trying to strip things out of an agency that is for environmental protection.
And I think that's where some entities have gone with enforcing existing
Right. I'd
regs,
like
and
just
they're
something
kinda-
in there about
yeah.
just this,
Okay.
what's happening in general.
That's fine. Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. And I think you're right, John. It just has to be a fairly broad approach. Northwest Council of Governments Water QQ, through the staff there, is going to be submitting comments specific to water quality. And I would just say Google a little bit, because I can't find it right now, but I did find a list of examples of some of the industry comments that have been made, and without trying to pull them up now, there were things like the American Asphalt Association didn't want any further studies on whether there's carcinogens coming out of the blacktop that kids play on schoolyards, and the roofing industry saying that they're not concerned about the noxious fumes, health effects on the workers who are roofing and using these various products. So a lot of it is going to have to do with chemical contamination, and they don't want to see increased thresholds or decreased thresholds for things like we've seen in the past, PM10.
Lead.
And so, the EPA, or lead, or things like that. So I do think they're going to have to be somewhat broad. We're not going to be able to cover everything, but if we get to see a little bit of what the industry is submitting in various areas, we can probably dial it back from there. But your comment, I think, is really good, Patty, and I hadn't thought of it in that term before, but it's a appropriate inspection and enforcement of existing rules, and that they need to make sure they're actually enforcing the rules. A rule means nothing if nobody's inspecting, and if the staff has been cut so deeply that nobody
Right,
can.
just the whole depletion of the Environmental Protection Agency as a whole.
And those standards. They did have a 2-hour, quote, call-in from the EPA, and it was like a lottery to get a ticket to be somebody who got to call in. But again, from my reading,
2 hours for the whole country?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That majority of the comments, the thin majority, were more about we really want clean air, we want clean water, we want protection, we don't want chemicals that may injure our living children or genetic damage to future children. So those are really important. What was the other one I was just kind of thinking of? I think that we depend on the agency for continued vetting of non-natural materials being introduced into the environment. Those things are critical. We've all know issues about plastic in waterways and broken down plastic in waters, but there may be some research you can get, Laura, that would be helpful to you. The TEDx exchange, TDEX, they particularly look at the chemical compounds that are hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors, things like that. I mean, they're finding that in the water all across the country already. So it'll be broad, but it's necessary to try to balance industry so that the comments weren't all this way or that way, and so just to have something out there. The other one that isn't quite as short a timeline is going to be on monuments. Like you were saying, Patty,
Yeah,
it's not the same comment, but there's just going to be rapid response on this rulemaking going back. So the Department of Interior is now taking comments on monuments designations. And so we can talk more thoroughly on that one in the future, but we have a little more time on that. So the last thought on this whole thing was just slipped away because I looked at my notes and saw something else. I hate it when that happens.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back, and I'll just forward it on to John and Laura. But so they'll be a little bit broad and meaningful. But I think the expression about how important this is to our economy, and perhaps even progress that's been made in areas. We have to comply with state regulations on water quality.
Now you're going back to EPA.
Yeah. And that this is just something we depend on. Okay, thanks. I'll shoot you any more thoughts.
Yeah, I wish we could be more specific with you guys, but I think we're going to need to.
It's going to be a broad brush.
Yeah.
A broad brush, yeah.
Yeah. Although I would bullet point it, so that they can't ignore it.
And if there are proposed rulemaking that comes out of this, you can notify the board on that, and you can take positions on specific proposed changes, eliminations to existing regulation.
Anybody else have any?
Well, I thank you. Laura, you reminded me of my last point. I don't know if they're going to try to claim that this is scoping for a NEPA process. And if they are going to try that, we need to make sure we kind of have our hooks in to be able to say you have failed at scoping. It was not.
Talking now about monuments?
No, I'm talking about the EPA things. I don't know. In theory, to replace one law with another law, you need to have done the science and prove that the new law is better than the old law. And so, again, I don't know if they're going to try to say this was our scoping period, we took public comment, now we just answered those scoping questions and we're done. And so a lot of times on a scoping in the EPA, it's just trying to get some questions in there that you can later look at their body of work and say, you did not answer this. You did not fully address this. It was an illegitimate process.
And for actual changes that are proposed, it would need to be published in the Federal Register, so there will be an opportunity when something is actually identified, but the point is well taken.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve?
I've thought a lot about our the issue we were talking about yesterday on how much we were going to contribute for the mental health facility in Grand Junction. And I've changed my mind on how I would vote. I would vote to do the whole $100,000
We're going to have a whole nother discussion now then.
Well, I just wanted to pass my reasoning on. There's been too many suicides in our community, and you know, my next door neighbor, if this facility was already expanded, he might still be here because he could have gotten the help he needed. And yesterday, I was concerned about what other counties and municipalities are giving to it. And if we think of what is the right thing to do, if we could put in another $50,000 than we were going to, and if we could prevent one person from committing suicide by doing that, to me it's worth that money. So that's, I just wanted to pass that on. And
it may actually not change unless.
No, I think that's reasonable, Steve, and it's very heartfelt. Like all the board cares so much about this, but we have left it open for them to come back, and so I think I'll stand with what the board decided yesterday as well, rather than see if they come back.
Thank you. Okay, anything else for the open discussion? Anybody else?
One last quick question just for John, just regarding Pitkin Alerts policy. Somebody mentioned using Pitkin Alerts regarding the bike race. That seems like a pretty normal thing to do. Somehow, we got a Pitkin Alert for a golf tournament.
The sheriff's golf tournament.
So did the sheriffs put Pitkin Alerts out for their events like that?
The Pitkin Alert system is managed through the communication center, which is at the direction of the sheriff's department. It is unusual that you might get that kind of notification. It is not unusual, however, when there's a major event that may impact traffic, that may impact some of those other. But the sheriff does have some discretion there.
But on the Pitkin Alert, you can opt in and opt out on what you want to be alerted to.
Mm-hmm. But I think Greg's question is to the use of that for this benefit. It really was.
Medium versus.
It was really up to the sheriff, and so I think the concern would be directed towards him.
Because I never got that.
I got it. Wes wondered the same thing. I'm like,
opt-out special events.
It's an app or something.
Okay, if that's it, I would ask for a motion
I'll
to
make
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Grassroots.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeanette.
Thanks, Jeanette.
All right, now, Thunder, what's going on over in this corner?
We'll see you tomorrow, Greg.
Yes.